Stories number 1. AITA for refusing to continue being the one supporting my son's participation in a sport he is not that enthusiastic about, but my wife is. Burner for privacy. My wife, 40F, grew up as a competitive athlete, squash, playing through college on an NCAA championship team. Her whole family is very into competitive sports. I, 47M, on the other hand, never had much interest. That's not to say that I was a couch potato. I was and have always been a frequent gym goer and into road cycling and skiing, for fun, not competition. We have a son, 11M. My wife put him into squash lessons clinics starting at age 7. She's now started signing him up for tournaments. Even though this is mostly her doing, I am the one taking him to and from lessons clinics, driving to tournaments, etc. I'm also essentially the person financially responsible for our entire lifestyle. With my separate money I bought our houses, cars, pay all the utilities, insurance, school tuition. My wife make close to 6 figures, gets to spend it all on whatever she wants and still usually has approximately $0 in her bank account. I'm not complaining about this, my income and wealth is multiples of hers, but this will be relevant later. I've noticed that our son seems kind of down when I have to take him to squash and more down after he's done it. He has a lot of other interests, he loves coding, he plays guitar, he likes to ski, he likes bouldering, and between that and school, he is a conscientious and good student. Time is very scarce. The same is true for me. But both my son and I are finding our ability to do these other activities is being interfered with by my wife's insistence about how much time goes into squash. I should say that my son is okay at it, but he is never going to play Division I college, so it's not like college admission scholarships are in play here. I think it is great if he can play the game socially later in life, but he could achieve that spending 25% of the time on it that he does. And certainly, we wouldn't need to burn whole weekends on tournaments. I've asked my wife to pick up more of the slack for shuttling him to squash stuff, but she always says she has work she needs to do that makes it impossible. Recently, my wife signed him up for a tournament which conflicted with a bouldering event he wanted to do. He was sad. I asked him, "Do you want to keep doing this much squash?" He said that he didn't, but he didn't want to disappoint his mom. I said I'd talk to her about it. She was resistant to letting him do less, saying that he would appreciate it once he pushes through. I told her that she needs to address this with our son and that in the meantime, I was done dedicating him time and money to squash. If she wanted him to do more than a lesson or 2 a week, she would have to bring him and pay for it out of her own money. And if our son refused to cooperate with her in doing more squash than he wants, I would not enforce any consequences. She says that it isn't fair, she doesn't have the same money or time available that I have. I said, if you feel this passionate about our son's squash, then you need to put your money and time where your mouth is and not just decree that our son needs to do it and I need to be the chauffeur. She thinks I am being an asshole about it and abusing my greater wealth and more flexible schedule. Actually, it is not more flexible, I am just way more efficient at getting work done and being able to work hunched over a laptop at the squash courts, to get what I want. Wondering what the collective wisdom of the Reddit crowd thinks? Relevant comments. Commenter 1. AITA, if you let your wife force your son into unwanted activities whether she pays for it or not. Your son is 11, and he wants to pursue what he is interested in. If he is not interested in being a competitive squash player, no one should be forcing him or guilting him into being one. Do an internet search on forcing children to play sports and see the harm it does and the damage it does to the parent-child relationship. Part of being a good parent is providing a safe environment to your children for your children to learn to make decisions and consequences as well as teaching the other skills necessary for becoming an independent adult. At 11, your son should be deciding which of 2 competing activities he wants to participate in. His exploration of his interests should be driven by him. It's completely reasonable to insist that he has some form of physical activity and that if he signs up for an activity he attends and completes the session, but that is about it. What type of activity should be up to him? You should have been checking in with and stopping this a long time ago, OP. Reply. Yeah, I feel like I was too slow in addressing this. But in fairness, before he was 10, he didn't really develop interests on his own. Now that he is older and more mature, it is very clear he has more passion for certain activities than others. And only now that school is getting more intense and his other interests deeper does he experience that a heavy investment of time in squash will preclude other activities he prefers. So I've only seen him start to get upset about it in the last year or so. Probably should have addressed this immediately, but in my own defense, I can say that I am maybe a year late, not 4 years late. Commenter 2. Honestly, I think you are approaching this from completely the wrong direction. The issue is not who gets to pay for what or who gets to be the taxi service. The issue is that your son does not enjoy playing squash, and is only doing it to avoid disappointing his mother. She was a good squash player, and got a good scholarship out of it. Okay. But your son won't, according to both his inclination and your comments about him not going to a Division I school. You and your son need to sit down with your wife, and have a serious talk about how she is forcing him to live the life that she wants, and she is using her own passion and past experiences as the justification, as if he is a mini-mom. He is not, and he will come to hate the sport of squash and resent her for the fact that she is forcing him to be the person she wants him to be, irrespective of his interest, or lack of, in her plan. Reply. The irony is that if he did one lesson or clinic a week and no more, he would be quite happy. He doesn't hate squash. He hates that he has to do so much squash that he can't do everything else he loves. So easing up on him would get my wife a son who will have a lifelong enjoyment of casual squash. Not easing up, though, I agree, will get her a kid who hates squash. Commenter 3. It will also get her a kid that resents his mother for forcing him to spend all his time on squash. OOP adds this reply to a deleted comment. You know, funny thing is my two brother-in-laws were pushed by my FIL to play tennis and squash respectively. They were both very competitive players through college, but gave it up as soon as they graduated. And it has been a real sore point in their relationship with my in-laws how hard they were pushed to focus on one sport. So my wife has seen a model of this dynamic, but somehow is not applying it to this situation. Update, as I anticipated, when I pulled my money and time from supporting squash, she was either unwilling, my view, or unable, her view, to step up. Obviously, I saw that as a good thing, since I feel my son wants, appropriately, to do less squash and more of his other interests, bouldering, skiing, guitar being the three big extracurricular. But in the hopes of getting to a more consensual outcome, I told my wife that I would continue to take my son to one clinic and one lesson a week, no tournaments, for the interim. If she agreed to go to a bouldering session, to the drop-off or pick-up of a ski lesson, we go to a vacation home to ski over our spring break in March just happened, and to a guitar lesson and at each to speak to the instructor to get their perspective on our son's interest and aptitude. Then she could compare it to how he seems to feel about performing squash. She agreed, and now that we are back from skiing, she's done all three. The result was pretty much as I expected. All three teachers mentioned that he seemed incredibly passionate about the activity and that he was extremely coachable. The bouldering and ski teachers were clear he is probably not going to be some sort of champion, aptitude-wise, though the guitar teacher calls him one of his most talented students. In comparison, his squash coach says that he needs to bring more intensity to his efforts. Even to my squash-favoring wife, it was clear that her contention that he needs to just push through with squash does not match up with his immediate and enduring interest in and passion for his other activities. We've talked about it together and my wife agreed she'd follow our son's lead on squash. We asked him what his idea outcome is and he said that he'd like to continue squash at a low intensity, so he can play it socially. He wants to do clinic once a week and once a week to play with his mom. He said that being able to play with her would be one of the main reasons for him to keep playing and that he had been disappointed she hadn't done it much. She said she didn't realize that but that it made her happy that he wants to play with her and she will make time. So we have what seems to be a solution: no more tournaments, one clinic a week and periodic mom and son hitting sessions. Relevant comments. Commenter 1. How she was a competitive squash player and not playing with him or being his coach from the beginning is beyond me. Reply. I think the source of the problem is her job, or at least her approach to it. It is very consuming and that has led her to turn to me to do more of the parenting than is good for our son or for her. Seeing our son doing activities that she really had not been involved in before made her realize the degree to which work had taken her away from parenting. Commenter 2. When does your son just get to be a kid? I don't mean sitting around playing video games. I mean hanging out with friends without constant coaching. Just to breathe. Childhood should not look like a job. Reply. He is the one who asked to do all these activities, except for squash. That's just the kind of kid he is. The bouldering is also something where he does it as part of a group of other kids on a team, so it serves as a social time for him. Commenter 3. Does he have any downtime? How many days a week do the activities consume? How much time do you spend with him? Other than in the car running from one activity to the next. These are things to think about. Not suggesting becoming a helicopter parent. Just being a part of his life. Reply. Climbing is one weekend morning. We drive to a nearby city like 45 minutes, he does his climbing team, I work out at same gym, we go get lunch together and drive home. Squash now 90 minutes one evening a week. Guitar lesson 1 hour 2x a week and he practices maybe an hour a day. He usually does something with friends all day one weekend day. His school is relatively light on homework, so he gets his share of video games, airsoft, etc. The problem was that squash was taking up like 3 evenings a week and some tournaments that killed whole weekends. Stories number 2. I, 26F, think my boyfriend, 26M, watches too much Game of Thrones as he's asked me to not hang out with my twin bro, 26M, too much. Reddit, what do you think of this situation and what do you think I should do? So, my boyfriend apparently watches a lot of Game of Thrones because my brother and I are apparently Cersei and Jaime Lannister. I see my brother once or twice per month. When we see each other, we may have lunch, catch a movie, take a walk or just kick back at his or my apartment and watch movies, play video games or just have some beer and catch up. I see my boyfriend 3 to 4 times per week at least. On a good month we see each other probably more than 20-30 days. We have been together for 14 months. My boyfriend has met my brother several times. At first I thought they were cool and my brother honestly got that vibe as well. Beyond hanging out a few times initially, my boyfriend never really hung out with my brother when he was in town despite me asking as well as my brother inviting him along. However, recently he brought it up to me that he was not comfortable with us hanging out so much alone and it made him feel weird. He has asked me to not be alone with my brother when we do hang out, and if that's not possible and it will be just us, then he doesn't like that idea. Again, I reiterate, my boyfriend clearly watches too much Game of Thrones because he seems to have some assumption there is some sort of weird incest going on or something. My brother and I have always been close and had each other's backs, that's it. We live our own lives but we love each other and make an effort to maintain a good relationship, especially as our own lives begin to move off in separate directions, despite only living a few hours apart. I have no idea what it is why he would want me to do this. He has not given a reason beyond I don't feel comfortable with you hanging out with that guy. There is a photo on Instagram of the two of us on a hike along with my brother's friend. I damaged my ankle a couple months back on that hike and my brother carried me on his back for the rest of the way. His friend took photos because it simply looked funny, but my BF pretty much dislikes those and says it's really weird that you all are 20-something and are so close. For fuck's sake, he is my brother and I was injured. Yes, I am angry at my boyfriend, 1. Because he's asked me to stop hanging out alone with my brother, and 2. I do not appreciate the incestuous implications. Reddit, what do you think of this situation and what do you think I should do? TLDR, boyfriend thinks twin brother and I are Cersei and Jaime come to life, has asked me to not hang out with him alone, flipped out over a pic of him carrying me on his back during a hike I injured my ankle on. Relevant comments. Commenter 1. Most crazy boyfriends start forbidding contact with non-relatives before getting to this level of paranoia. Congrats on finding an overachiever, I guess. Reply. Thanks, I suppose. Commenter 2. It's definitely thanks, seeing as he's quite succinctly pointed out what is actually going on here. Commenter 3. Lord, next he'll be uncomfortable with you wearing underwear because the textile is too close to your genitals, and what's that cotton spandex blend got that so special that he lacks? Thank him for being honest with you and let him know that you'll be patient while he works on getting a grip and recognizing that many people are close with their siblings and that is both normal and awesome. Then continue appreciating your closeness with your brother and being thankful you have someone who will always have your back. Reply. Exactly. I know people who absolutely wish they had a sibling or two they're as close with as I am with my brother. Of course my boyfriend has a couple younger brothers and one elder sister and they aren't really close, so I dunno what if that's got a bit to do with it. Commenter 4. I think you really need to reconsider being in a relationship with someone who can't separate fantasy from reality. Reply. He doesn't really watch Game of Thrones beyond a few episodes, he's just really religious etc., doesn't watch inappropriate stuff. I just thought it'd be a funny title for a funny awkward situation. Commenter 5. But as it stands, your boyfriend is still jealous of your brother. Which is weird. Have you asked him why he thinks it's weird that you're so close to your brother? Commenter 6. He just says it's uncomfortable. However, my brother can be loud and has a bit of a commanding presence, he's one of those people in a room people tend to gravitate to. Also, he and I are more outdoorsy types, we've done hiking, swimming and Latin dancing together. Mom forced him to go because I wanted, then forced me to go karate for a while with him. I dropped out quick though, but we did continue dancing and swimming for quite a long time and both actually made a number of good friends through those activities. My boyfriend is always up for trying stuff once, but generally he's the stay-at-home, loves the indoors, tend to his garden type. He's an old soul, I suppose. I dunno if it's that. Update. So this past Friday I had a talk with my so about his feelings regarding my relationship with my twin. At first it was the same, I just feel uncomfortable etc., but after pushing for a very frustrating 2 hours he ends up talking about how in the home he grew up, it was very reserved, affection was sparing, the equivalent of getting a present for doing well on exams etc., it was used as a reward. He admits that as a result he sees siblings who are close, especially as close as my brother and I, as being inappropriate and it makes him uncomfortable. He says he's sorry for this and he'll try to change. Anyway, fast forward to Saturday evening, my brother and a few of our old friends are in the area, so they invite me, and a couple of our friends out. We end up hitting this Latin bar restaurant with about 3 couples, 2 single girls and 3 single guys. My brother and I and another 2, one of the single guys and one of the single gals who we met Latin dancing a few years back decide we'll dance since there's music playing and a few other people dancing. It's no professional dancing with the stars kinda stuff by the way, these are all people who've been drinking and just having a merry time, and those who aren't dancing are watching and having fun as well. So my brother and I dance for a bit, we stumble here and there due to some liquor a couple times. It looks sexy, is the word I suppose, but nothing inappropriate. If any one of you has done Latin dancing, you know there's just something sensual and free about those dances in general, whether you're with a partner or just doing a little something by yourself, though generally you're with a partner. Anyway, I dance with a few people including my other female friends and their boyfriends who don't really know how, but we all have a blast with me trying and failing to teach their drunk asses how to cha-cha and salsa. I also pulled my boyfriend for a dance, but he remained planted by the bar area, drinking and generally being stony-faced. We get back to his place, I'm in the mood to fool around, he is angry and starts yelling about how we talked yesterday and he thought this fucking shit, exact words, was over. He is quite pissed and starts ranting about if you wanna fuck your brother so bad, go ahead, and is basically telling me that he knows I love my brother and I always fucking put that asshole, exact words, first, and that he would never do something like that with his sister in front of me or other people, dancing. At a point he shoved me away from him really hard when I tried to put my hands on him and calm him down. I got fucking pissed off, I go to leave, he grabs me and is yelling, at a point I start crying and he seems to snap out of it and gets this shocked look and starts saying I'm sorry and trying to hug me etc. He's apologizing profusely, but now I storm out. Naturally I go back to my place and I call, yes, my twin brother as well as one of my friends, a girl, and the three of us proceed to get drunk together. Woke up on my bed next to my friend and my brother snoozing on my couch on Sunday. Boyfriend came over to try and apologize, I told him I didn't want to see him, he pushes into my apartment, brother gets in his face and tells him to fuck off and not to come near me again, while his other friend who came over along with his girlfriend, at this point it's me, my best female friend, my brother, brother's friend's girlfriend, ex-boyfriend, and that the only reason he's not getting his ass beat is because I asked them not to do so. I tell him it's done and not to contact me, come near me anymore. Also, part of me has to admit I danced with my brother simply to get a rise out of my boyfriend due to how much shit he'd been giving me over it. Did not know he would lose it like that. It is what it is. TLDR, had a talk with my boyfriend, went out with him, my brother and a number of other friends at a Latin dance-themed bar restaurant. Brother and I had one drunken yet I suppose sexy, at times, dance. Boyfriend got angry and yelled that I wanted to fuck my brother and shoved me away and just was really rough when we went back to my apartment. I left, got drunk with my twin brother and my best girlfriend, the next day broke up with my boyfriend and my brother and his friend told him to fuck off after he tried to force himself into my apartment to apologize. Editor's note, the comment section on the update was a dumpster fire, with half victim blaming OOP and half supporting. OOP comes back and edits the update after the comments section spirals out of control. Yes, I danced with my brother partially to get a rise out of my boyfriend. I'd been so fed up of him giving me shit that honestly I wanted to annoy him a little. So to the people judging me for that, don't act so high and mighty as though you've never had a moment where you have been 100% an angel who just rolled over and took verbal abuse and unjustified nagging and questioning from your so. To the people who implied I deserve him roughing me up, thank you. This says far more about your character than it does mine. I had no clue he'd lose his shit. I also hoped that by coming out with us he'd see that it was just two people interacting and there was nothing strange about hanging out, being close with your sibling and doing fun activities together. I don't even know why I thought getting him to come was a good idea looking back. Stories number 3. AITA for refusing to help a friend who didn't invite me to their wedding. For about 11 years now, I've, 37M, been pretty close with, let's call him, John, 38M. We met at a job in my mid-20s and were pretty regular company up until the pandemic, where our hanging out, including a circle of mutual friends, has taken a decline but isn't extinct. John and his partner, let's call her, Jane, 36F, have been together for about 8 years now, engaged for a little under 2 years, both with a child from previous relationships, so they have taken trips with their kids near yearly, and I've been happy to help visit John's, now their, home and check on things, take care of their animals, etc. while they're gone. I've helped them out with other projects tasks over the years and most recently picked up Jane from the airport returning from a work trip and got her home this past winter during a snowstorm because my vehicle could handle it. Generally, I have been present and helpful on top of our base friendship. About 5 weeks ago, I find out from a mutual friend their wedding is coming up, and invites went out a while ago, everyone in our circle but me invited. As a gay guy, I've experienced being iced out of some of my straight friends' lives and events in ways minor and pronounced, but this one has definitely been something that has had me thinking about my time and energy with people. I decided I would take the hint and begin to distance myself. 3 days ago, John texts me asking if I am around in early to mid-August. I say I am. John asks if I wouldn't mind visiting like I have before to look after the animals and property. I said, sorry, I can't. He calls to talk about it. We run through the same conversation, polite but a bit tense, so I finally say, I just won't be visiting your home. After a moment of silence, I bring up that I'm disappointed that I appear to be the only person in our group of friends not invited to his wedding, and that I can't be helping like I have before if I'm just a background friend at this point. I wrap up the call positively and sincerely with me wishing them a good wedding and trip, and that maybe we can grab drinks soon. Jane reaches out 2 days ago sending follow-up texts saying John is upset about what I said and with her because she made the final calls about friend invites, and that I am taking this the wrong way, there is only so much capacity and that the others in our friend group have partners that took up space. She adds that she hopes I'll change my mind and help out them out because it would put John's mind at ease. I'm not entitled to the company of others or invitations to anybody's events, but am I wrong for setting my own boundaries in response to theirs? I try not to frame my friendships as transactional, but they obviously want something out of me here despite their not inviting me and then avoiding even bringing it up with me until they needed help with covering their honeymoon. Comments. Commenter 1. NTA Jane reaches out 2 days ago sending follow-up texts saying John is upset about what I said and with her because she made the final calls about friend invites, and that I am taking this the wrong way, there is only so much capacity and that the others in our friend group have partners that took up space. What a bogus excuse. If your friends need someone to check up on their animals and property when they are on their honeymoon after a wedding you weren't invited to, they can ask another friend or family member. The audacity of some people astounds me. I am a believer in putting the same energy into a friendship as you experience. Reply. I don't pretend to be super savvy about wedding etiquette and I realize every wedding is different and lines have to be drawn about who can come or not, but yeah, my mutual friend reaching out to me to coordinate plans for our friend group during the weekend of the wedding to find out I wasn't invited definitely stung and felt awkward, and my friend was in disbelief as well. Commenter 2. You were measured in your response and polite. You wished them well and suggested you meet for drinks in the future. It should have been the end of it. Miss Thing reaching out and asking you to reconsider to put the groom's mind at ease is beggar's belief. Commenter 3. Some people are insufferable and completely shameless. She tells Op John is upset about what Op said, so she hopes Op will change his mind and help them out because this would put John's mind at ease. Clearly Op's role in the wedding plan was to take care of their animals. Commenter 4. NTA. This sounds like a really one-sided friendship and that they are taking your friendship for granted. Why would you keep putting time and energy into them? Reply. Like I said, we've been pretty close up until now, and I've happened to have the availability when they need it often enough where we've been close enough before that I didn't mind or feel taken advantage of. John's helped me as well in the past, and try not to hold other people's lives and familial commitments against them, but I was trying to paint a concise picture, given the character limit, of being, I thought, close. This situation, like I said, definitely changed my perspective given the other friends invited, but I wanted to make sure I wasn't making their wedding about me. They approached me after excluding me. So far people seem to agree, which I'm relieved about. Commenter 5. Let's call a spade here. Jane's excuse is flimsy. And because her excuse is so flimsy I think she's just a homophobe. Are you John's only gay friend? Reply. As far as I'm aware. Commenter 6. It's not looking good for Jane. Update. Yesterday afternoon, a few days after John made the initiating contact that led to this altercation, he reached out by text telling me the following. I want to take you up on that drink tomorrow if possible, and I want to apologize for my royal fuck-ups in person. I agreed to meet. After we kicked off with a round of shots, John's first line was that he failed me as a friend in this situation. With non-family invites, Jane apparently seemed very preoccupied with a philosophy of couples over singles at the wedding, and he had previously voiced that he felt it was exclusionary and silly, but I guess Jane prioritized couples on the first round of friend invites and told John that it will be easier to fit in others after receiving RSVPs. John backed out and says he felt that going along with her initial plan of inviting the rest of our circle, who are, God bless them, coupled up, and not me, and had faith the RSVP thing would materialize. She ended up using the bit of space to plug in some more family. John admitted he basically folded and felt ashamed enough that he could not find a way to tell me. He knew reaching out to me about that favor was a risk but took it anyways because he wanted someone he could trust, and my response was a materialization of everything he feared would happen, and in his words, deservedly so. He told me a wedding should be a gathering of your family and company who have been a part of your lives and who you want to be part of your lives, and I fit that bill to him by any measure. He, trying to accurately paraphrase, said I've done more than most of the people on the guest list for him and his family over their relationship, including help making memories with trip coverages and helping build their back deck with him to share meals and host events over the last 6 years. He got visibly upset when he said, with the shot and the drinks we were sipping on kicking in, that he can't believe Jane even considered holding my single dating status against me after I got her home safely during a snowstorm earlier this year, and that he did not more adamantly confront that bullshit reasoning the instant she voiced it. He is even more pissed for Jane reaching out to me in the manner she did after my original phone call with him. John acknowledged it would come off as hollow at this point, but after a few exchanges with Jane said there would be no more nonsense and I would at least get a proper invite and +1 if I wanted, and they would make it work if it was even desired by me at this point. He said he is not going to try to do panic damage control but will be upfront with our circle. One has already dropped the wedding and I guess another couple has said something else, by his reporting, like he was with me for his faults, because he and Jane deserve the blowback and he needs to earn trust back, if it's at all possible. He has also made it Jane's problem to find a friend who can come out 9 days in a row to care for the home and pets. With a smirk, he said she's having a hard time securing it, and may likely have to hire help. I told John the first really appreciated his owning up to this, and it was good to see the friend I had shine through here. I told him that I have always appreciated him and Jane's friendship, so it hurt when I was excluded and not even addressed. I felt that close enough anyways, and I obviously don't mean to complicate his wedding. I've always thought him and Jane were great for each other. Earnestly, I have supported them as best as I can, and I've been confused about what I have done or haven't done to be iced out. I also admitted it's hard to trust Jane again if she has been weighing the validity of my presence based on my relationship status, and added, with some humor, it's not like I haven't been trying and you guys haven't met some of my previous long-term partners. He said he doesn't get it either, and she has at least one good friend who is single that she may have burned a bridge with as well over the wedding philosophy she had. I said the friendship is going to be changed and informed by this, at least very different for a while, and I know that you and Jane had a disagreement leading to this but that I hope that the wedding goes on to be a good celebration. I informed him it feels best to take a pass on the invitation, but he said if there was a change of mind, up to the last minute, to let him know, which was kind and he wasn't desperate pushy about it. John said the fault is his for not stepping up on my behalf, that he is sorry, and while he feels, I wouldn't expect otherwise, and I agree, he is very lucky to have her in his life and thinks their marriage is a positive development for them. He even told her this whole situation will have him questioning and second-guessing her judgment on social matters with his friends for the foreseeable future. By his reporting, but a credit to their relationship, this was quite a blow to her to hear from him but one she accepted and apologized for after their arguments about the subject. Before we parted ways in the parking lot, we gave each other a bro hug, and John's voice broke a bit when he said he is sorry one last time, and I think mine did too when I forgave him. It was legitimately surprising and therapeutic to have John be so frank and accountable, but not unlike the friend I've known for most of my adult life. It was bittersweet, being all things considered a makeup but also a breakup of sorts to what was previously an unquestioned and assumed strong trust and camaraderie. Maybe we can get there again. It seems possible, and it'd be nice. I'm sitting here after weeks of big feelings stewing on a different shade of big boy feelings now. Thanks for processing with me, Reddit. A lot of people had good things on the range of the spectrum to share with me, and I've done my best to respond to people without getting too consumed in doing other things that need to be done. I was happy for John to talk with me. Maybe commenters are right and they see me as something else than I thought we were as friends. And maybe I've got some work to do to assert myself, and that I have been a doormat up to this point. I know I've got some soul-searching to do about me as a person and how I see myself with John and Jane, and maybe my other friendships as well. This relationship felt a lot closer and authentic in a different time, but it's hard to paint a fuller picture of that after a situation like this. Things change. As tempting as it is to accept the invitation and be there for John, I think I trust my instinct to let this be, and if John meant what he said, and if Jane comes around, they'll make the effort to follow up. I will be putting some distance for a while, and time will tell. I'm glad we got a chance to talk, because if it is the end, I feel good about giving him a chance to own it, and as I've gotten older I appreciate the hard work of taking on uncomfortable stuff. I made some plans for that weekend with a couple other friends which I'm looking forward to. I find repeated updates on an initial post a bit messy and tacky, so if anyone wants my thoughts on particulars just click my profile and look at my comments responses. Thanks for words and insights, Reddit. Comments. Commenter 1. I'm envious of your tact, grace, and insight in handling such a difficult situation. You sound like an incredible friend and I hope you're both able to rebuild from this. Also, fuck Jane. Commenter 2. John is a coward. Commenter 3. But he did confront his wife and was honest about being ashamed of the snub. It was good he could spell out just how and why OP was important to them and should never have been discluded. He didn't have a spine, but was at least brave enough to confront the situation after the fact. There's room to rebuild the relationship with John, but was very telling Jane did not appear for that apology session. Jane better get her own winter vehicle for the future. Commenter 4. I hope that a couple they lovingly invited would get engaged at their wedding. That's my wedding wish for Jane. Reply, Okay, I spit my drink out laughing catching this response. Commenter 5. Don't let John skip out on his responsibility for this. This isn't solely Jane's fault. John seems to think you are the sort of sap who would still do him favors even though he doesn't treat you like a close friend. Also, you have a list of ways you have helped John out, but I would like to see a list of things he has done to help you out. Is John a user? Reply, we've helped each other out. Another poster said something, I thought valid, about this being framed as transactional because of the help favors being listed off. I think I may be guilty of being a guy who helps justify his presence in what he can help do for others on the same tier as my bonds, but John has been a great friend. Well, this hasn't been a good moment for sure. There was a drop in our bond, but I figured a lot of people were going through that since COVID and with his familial obligations, but he has helped me before with rides, and when I've had some low points making sure I had friends and company to bounce off of and pick me up. Update. Hey everyone. While this was obviously more pressing in the time frame I posted, it's been a while since the wedding and I've been naturally busy with other things going on in my own life. Not much to share or update about, so I didn't. While I was hurt about the precipitating combo of requested favor but hidden exclusion, but happy that John at least met with me, I didn't expect any quick, easy fixes, and have resolved to let it be and wait for Jane to reach out, and that it was even more likely that this friendship was basically over. John reached out a couple of days ago with a text asking if I would be interested in attending a Friendsgiving party they plan on throwing later this month, insisting that both he and Jane would love to have me, and despite some nervousness revisiting it all out of the blue, I said, sure thing. Comments. Commenter 1. We are all so invested. How did Friendsgiving go? Update. Hey, I didn't end up going. I said yes at first, but a few months removed from the incident, and despite my innate desire to somehow make it work, any time I thought about the situation I was left feeling upset. As I got closer to Friendsgiving, it became clear to me that showing up at a holiday gathering like that was going to be awkward and performative in nature, even if their intentions with the invite were good or coming from the right place, so I avoided it. It felt like the right call. I let John know I had something else come up and he voiced some obligatory disappointment but wished me happy holidays. I haven't received any communication from them since, and I haven't initiated any. It's likely that this may officially be over, but a few busy months in my work and personal life, and some reading thinking on other matters has cooled me off and given me some slight perspective changes from where I was at. Comments. Commenter 1. Thanks for the update. It looks like you may never get over this and forgive them, since you weren't honest with John about the reason for declining the dinner. Not a criticism, their betrayal would be hard to forget for most people. Please update us if anything comes up. Commenter 2. I can't get over that Jane, the one who refused to invite you, then called and berated you about how she'd still really want you to do them a favor, never apologized to you for it. Commenter 3. Honestly, it's a good thing you didn't go, but the dishonesty was not chanced, or they invited you for them, not for you. I say you should contact John again and just tell him that you are done. He was not a good friend, and it just comes off as if the U-turns were just to make themselves feel better. The biggest giveaway is the obligatory disappointment, meaning it sounded like he wasn't really bothered that you didn't go, not to mention absolutely zero communication from Jane since she called you demanding you take care of their pets after lying to you by omission. I hope you're able to get over this, L. You don't need friends like that, because from your posts he owned up, but it looks like he never really apologizes. Tell him you're done with him and get some closure. Stories number 4. I'm pretty sure my wife's DM hates me. For the last 4 years, my wife has been playing with a group that very quickly became close friends. Every Wednesday and Saturday night she would go on about epic tales and stories that she and her group would get into. Seeing her eyes light up as she talks about her tiefling artificer and his growth and development made my heart swell. She had been wanting to find a group that matches her energy and encourages creativity, and told me she found it with them. I couldn't be happier for her. With permission from the DM and players, I've sat in some of their sessions on Discord, just listening and watching, and found that everyone's energy was so infectious. They bounced ideas off each other, the DM allowed creativity and out-of-the-box thinking, even rewarded everyone for roleplay and solving issues without bashing people's skulls in. I was laughing with them, even felt my heartstrings tugged at emotional moments. I have to say, the DM was insanely great at storytelling and allowing everyone to be the character they wanted. Well, about 6 months ago, they ended their 4-year-long campaign and said goodbye to their beloved group. The DM mentioned she was going to start a new season set in the same world setting with a new adventure 100 years prior to the events that kicked things off. She DM'd me asking if I would like to be a player, and I enthusiastically replied with a hell yeah. I've been playing solo TTRPGs for a while because, like my wife, I've had bad table after bad table, and this seemed like the best opportunity for us both to play together with perhaps one of the best tables we've ever had. Over the last 5 months, DM has been contacting me and other players both in the public Discord and privately about our characters and the world. I asked her for anything and everything she had on the world setting, so that I could acclimate a character that would fit perfectly within it. I was given lore, and any questions I had, she promptly answered. I asked her what kind of limitations she had or requests, and she said, as long as you play a good aligned character, we Gucci. Apparently she had some issues where people played evil, and even neutral characters, and it caused a whole issue. She wants to tell stories of the hero's journey and not worry about every villager being killed for having a bad attitude or looted of precious heirlooms. When I believed I had a good idea of what to expect, I created my character. We shared our character concepts like personalities, a bit of our backstories, classes, that sort of thing. There were so many unique traits that we all had, and it was looking like it would be diverse and amazing. The DM wanted us to have a few secrets in our backstory that we wouldn't share with the other members of the group, making for character surprises in-game. She did this in her last session and they loved it, giving them moments to discover about each other and some crazy roleplay scenes. My secret was that my character was abused and tortured by the gods of this world, a punishment for her bloodline from centuries ago. She was a Tiefling rune blade warrior from an Asian-inspired home where she prayed to her ancestors to guide her. They were very spiritual and believed they could fight their inner curse by being better than their progenitor. Unfortunately, most of her family had gotten wiped out by the gods, leaving her and her siblings alive but scattered. Her goal is to find them and to confront the gods who had done that. The idea was fun, and we hashed out a lot of little details that would make it interesting within the story that was being told. I was all for it and for the drama it would bring. We all have tie-ins to other characters, so I was thrilled to get playing. We had our session 0 in which the characters had already started out knowing each other from attending the same academy. We took on a group mission, and it kick-started our main story. It was a blast and the roleplay was very good, and that's about where the fun ended for me. From that point on, everything became about shitting on my character. We would go into other towns because that is where the story would take us, but every town apparently did not like Tieflings. Every single town. We went to a place with humans and immediately they refused to work with the group because they don't associate with cursed blood. We went to the city of elves, where the bulk of the story took place, and I had to sit out for 95% of it. The elves scoffed at her but they were willing to work with the rest of the group. Not a single NPC would address my character and my character wasn't allowed in any elven sacred places or inside their city, so she had to remain outside in the camp and fend for herself while the rest of the party would be welcomed. I brought up the issues I had. I told her that while I fully understand that there might be people who are untrusting of her, maybe there could be a way that someone might take some consideration to the fact that she's not a bad person. She gave it some thought and said that sounds reasonable. The next session, a player found a potion that could change one's appearance and snuck out to give it to my character. My character then had a moment of shame for being who she was, and the only way she'd be accepted is if she changed who she was entirely. It brought her more strength to prove that she was good, to prove to the world and the gods that she was worthy of being seen as a person and not some monster. There was a scene where she drank the potion and looked human, and then it went to the rest of the group. The group had a moment in which they were involved with the elven children that lasted most of the entire session. It was fun, as they got to engage with them and learn about some special alchemical potions, each of them being granted a bonus and buff for the remainder of their time there. When it finally came to my turn, my scene was of me getting into the elven city and finding one of the children who was part of the group who wanted to learn sword fighting. Since I was a rune blade, I felt I could help them and have a fun one-on-one moment like the group had. Nope. As soon as she said she was going to help, the DM went, okay, you do that and have a fun sparring session. And then immediately went back to the group before ending the session. In a 6-hour session, I played for 15 minutes tops. I messaged the DM again, being as polite as I could about the frustrations. My wife and her friends are having so much fun, and it seems like when the DM is focusing on them, everyone is laughing and having a grand time. When we spoke, she told me that the elves are untrusting of anyone who isn't elven, even more so with cursed blood. I told her that there was an orc in the party who had a violent history and the elves seemed perfectly fine with them, but somehow my character who had been atoning for their curse for several generations prior is seen as more untrustworthy. She explained that's just the way things are, but that's what my character was fighting for. I told her it wasn't fun to not be included in the group activities, and that I was feeling left out because of this. I asked if I could change the whole cursed bloodline plot and opt for something else, or just re-roll, and she said not to worry about it because she had a whole story built in for it and it would all make sense when we get there. It only got worse from there. Several more sessions in, the characters had been guided by the elves to a ruined city where we were supposed to find out what happened. I picked up a relic and it burned me, which I had to take 11 radiant damage and had a permanent -1 to my strength score until I could get it cleared through some unknown means. My wife's character picked up the relic with a cloth and was blessed with light and had gotten a permanent +1 to her intelligence stat. It was a relic of her character's goddess who started off a major quest line. The downside? She was one of the pantheon who deemed it necessary that my family's bloodline get wiped out. I didn't know what the hell to do. Why would my character be willing to help this goddess who killed her family and kept her and 2 siblings alive so they would live out the rest of their days in suffering and mourning? Why pit my character against the whole group? I asked my wife if this has happened before in their games and she said it didn't, but maybe the DM was hoping for more drama. I told her I wasn't having fun, and that I might just leave, but she wanted to play with me so badly, that this was the first table we could sit at together and have fun. I'm not of the mindset of keeping to a bad table just because, but it is my wife and their previous campaign looked so much fun, I had to hope that by keeping open communication we could have a good experience. Things got mildly better with my character having some story beats. She found her older brother and saved him from an execution, and I had a little more roleplay from the other characters, but there were several moments where things felt like I was being picked on specifically. For instance, we had a scene where we were running from a giant, and the DM asked me specifically, "Tanya, what shoes are you wearing?" "Oh, Geta. Yeah, you have disadvantage on your rolls as the wooden platforms of your Geta are getting stuck in the crevices while running." And things like that. She wouldn't ask the others what they wore, or how they did things to give them disadvantages, just me. I wondered if it was because I was the only guy in the group as this is an all-girls table, but I just can't help but feel as if I'm constantly being picked on while everyone else is not having to make extra challenge rolls or have times where they aren't even a part of the plot for several sessions. I've spoken with her several times and even brought up the options to reroll or just politely bow out, but she's told me she has some grand plan for my character that I'll love and it ties into the overall story and the other characters, so leaving or rerolling would ruin all that. I'm at an impasse here because my wife and her friends are having a great time and if I leave, it will somehow ruin this great plot and their progress, but I dread sitting at the table twice a week for 6 hours a day and get to only chime in when I get any acknowledgement from the NPCs who are even willing to talk to me. Sorry this was such a long post, this has been sitting with me for the past 4 months since we started. TLDR, I joined my wife's group after watching her 4-year-long amazing campaign and her DM bashes my character every single session despite her saying that this character is essential to her overall story and everyone's backstory. Relevant comments. Commenter 1. I'd definitely say leave, no game is worth enduring isolation and feeling picked on. If you and your wife want to play at a table together then maybe you can run games for each other or find a different table, maybe gather some other friends or family and start something up if you can. If nothing has changed despite you kindly notifying the DM then I'm sure anyone would agree that it's reasonable to leave and you shouldn't feel guilty about ruining anything. The DM had their chances to make it a better and inclusive experience but they chucked it out and if they have a problem with you ruining a great, big plot then they can only blame themselves. Reply, I feel better going back to solo RPG because this has been a nightmare. I wanted to give it a chance from what I saw last time and it was awesome watching their past sessions. I feel like I am being particularly picked on in this group, and it's been infuriating. Commenter 2. She's told me she has some grand plan for my character that I'll love and it ties into the overall story and the other characters, so leaving or rerolling would ruin all that. The DM can tell you that now. It does not have to be everything, but a hint will help you play into that. From what else you are describing they are intentionally targeting you. Footwear does not trigger disadvantage roll. Reply, I've never seen anyone use footwear for disadvantage. Armor type sure, but this was a strange move that was meant to be intense and dramatic. It definitely wasn't fun. Commenter 3. At this point you just gotta think about the term, no D&D is better than bad D&D, it's sad that you can't have fun alongside your wife. Terrible DM. Honestly low-key baffled that she didn't seem more concerned for your sake, at least from what you wrote. But like if I saw my partner not have any laugh moments etc. that I and the rest had several of, that would have to be addressed. 6 hours is a long time to endure not doing anything. Heck a DM should never leave a player out of what's happening. If they get split for whatever reason, the DM should manage the time the players get equally emo. I can't imagine how hard it must have been to have watched them have so much fun. Finally get to play and join the fun, then essentially continue being the spectator with occasional playtime. Update. I'll try to make this much shorter than my last ramble lol. So a few things that I want to clear up about this situation that I had many people asking me. We were part of 4 tables previously. The first one was a group of college mates we had together that we thoroughly enjoyed, but it ended about 3 months in as the DM was going through a divorce and never picked it up again. After that, we had bad luck finding good tables. The first one the DM was a very raw player and skipped all roleplay. Nothing wrong with that, but we found out that it wasn't necessarily what we were looking for. The other tables had some problem players whom the DM didn't do anything about so we left as it would kill the jive of all the other players around. My wife found this group on DNDB. It was advertised as a novice DM looking for players and not as an all-girls table. It just so happened that all the ones who contacted her were women. 3. She had been telling me about her sessions pretty much from day one, as she was super excited to have found a table that worked for her. I stopped searching and did mostly solo as my new hobby, but I loved hearing about her adventures with other people. 4. She told her group that she'd tell me about these adventures and how excited I was. The DM then extended an invitation to me to watch them via my wife and I could sit in their Discord. I personally asked her permission and the group's permission if I could. I was fully intended to give them space if even one said no. They all agreed and I sat in for the last 3 months of their session. We had all gotten along pretty well. 5. At the end of their campaign, DM told me that they were going to start a new one up a few months after that ended, and asked if I wanted to make a character. I was excited to join since they all seemed really chill, and asked if that was okay with the group. Everyone agreed and were very welcoming. 6. I came to the DM with a different storyline than what we decided on. She liked my idea but wanted to add a little flavor with the scenario between the gods of that world, saying that it fit a vision she had for the story. She didn't tell me what that vision was, but from what I saw she was a great storyteller and I'm very flexible and can play into whatever she drums up for me. I did not know that this vision would then have me out of the game for almost all the social RP stuff. Sure, she came in handy for the mechanics and during fights, but any kind of RP with NPCs or main story plot was non-existent. 7. It wasn't always bad, just during big roleplay moments and some strange roles that I had to make, but there were moments I had fun. It just wasn't the majority of it. I stuck through because my wife enjoyed me playing with her, and the group always seemed outwardly friendly. I was really trying to give it a shot. Now for the update. I talked it over with my wife and she understood how I felt. She admitted she was in a hard place because she loved this group so much and it was the first time she felt like she could express herself, but also play in a game with me that was reminiscent of our first group. She agreed that we would have a one-on-one video chat with the DM privately and discuss any possible ways to make this fun for us all. I even said that if she was going a certain way, to give me some info and I can play up to it. What I basically got was, "I'm sorry you feel that way and can't handle some confrontation within game." My wife explained that confrontation is one thing, but I wasn't given a fair shot to prove myself. She, DM, was not happy and said if I didn't want to play in her game, I can hang out with the boys and do my own thing. Right then and there I got my answer and politely said she's right. I thanked her for her time and said that I'd be leaving. I told her she had full access to my character and whatever plan she wanted for her, and she thanked me before we ended the call. Shortly after that she kicked my wife and I out of the Discord and blocked us. I feel so bad for her, wife, because she was honestly hurt, but she said she stands by my decision. This happened Wednesday after our game, and I know she's hurt. My heart breaks because I know she's hurt, but I told her she could take that same character and we could play a solo D&D session together. TLDR, DM wasn't happy that I discussed my issues and she told me to go play with the boys. She then kicked me and my wife from her game and Discord and blocked us. We're now rolling up a solo D&D game to have fun our way. Edit also, thank you for all the support. I'm sorry I wasn't able to get back to a lot of you who reached out personally. We had a lot happen on top of all of this and needed to unplug for a bit to unwind. I am sincerely grateful for the encouraging messages I've received. Relevant comments. Commenter 1. Wow, she fucking sucks. Sorry you both had to deal with that. I hope you find a DM who isn't such a dick. Commenter 2. Yep. I hope she is reading those posts so she can learn how much she sucks. Fragile ego. Commenter 3. That sucks, man. You never know when you're in a horror story until it's over. Reply. Absolutely. Commenter 4. Hopefully, the other players don't just keep playing with that DM as if nothing happens but instead tries to reach out and set up something with you and your wife instead. Reply. One player has reached out to the wife to talk, they keep it very hush-hush, but I think it's what's kept her from being completely devastated. To which Shukdilong adds, I hope your next update is, all the other players blocked the DM and now we have a cool game together. Toxic ladies are just as bad as toxic dudes when it comes to gatekeeping their D&D. Reply. That would be a pretty epic turnout. One has already reached out to her, if more follow and leave, I'd be totally down for curating a game for them. We'll see though, either way, I'm intending on doing something for us to have our own fun without the crazy. Commenter 5. With the context given, it seems that even if not said directly that DM had a huge grudge against men, if you really told her politely that she could use your character and thanked her even, she shouldn't have your wife punished. It's sad but your wife would be better off if they can't respect people equally. Maybe in some Discord you can find another group overseas. Much luck finding a new group if you're up for it. Reply. It breaks my heart because she thought they were good friends for 4 years. They chat outside of D&D about books and played games. Only one of the girls talks to her. I won't say her name in case anyone sees this and goes after her, but it's been hard. These tables really make solid friendships and I feel awful for ruining that for her. Commenter 6. You have learnt and avoided a massive bullet further down the line. I'm sorry your wife got kicked out too, but the DM probably would have moved on to a different member of the table to force their power fantasy onto after you'd left. It's definitely all for the best. I pray for the DM's books to get smited. Including Rolthadai's reply, which was gilded. Nah, it doesn't sound like the DM forcing their power fantasy on anyone. What's actually happening here is that in this group, which consisted of only women, which happened totally by accident, and random and wild how that happens, had zero issues. It had a fun dynamic and was working well. None of the power issues or random issues existed for the other players. Then, when a player, who is a guy, was invited to the group, was placed in a position lower and forced to endure a lot shit. Not from the other players, mind you, but from the antagonistic actions of the DM herself. What likely was going on was that the DM never wanted the guy in the group in the first place and wanted it to remain a women-only campaign and group. Which there is absolutely nothing wrong with. But to invite the husband of one of the players work with them to create a character and then proceed to put the character at odds with the party, target them specifically with random rules and things that don't exist, leading them on saying, don't worry it'll all pay off, and having to endure it all because of the player's gender is bullshit. The DM should have just politely just said, no, I like how the group dynamic is working right now. The DM has her own personal issues to work through. She allowed a guy into the group likely to enact some form of revenge on him because she received foul treatment in the past from guys all because she was a girl. Which isn't fair. But to punish someone else who's done nothing to you all because of their gender is absolute hogwash. And the "go play with the boys" comment shows her hand. It's also telling that both of them were kicked from the group because the DM realized she fucked up and didn't want it getting out to the rest of the table about her actions and what was said. Ultimately, she just wanted an outlet for revenge. Now, I hate how this comes off as some red-pilled UGH women. Screed. But please don't think that it is. Everyone should get to play and have fun no matter their gender, race, sexual orientation, or creed. Everyone deserves to have fun in a collective storytelling environment and not be bullied or made to feel lesser than. But this DM chose to target a specific player for their gender because of some hurt they possibly experienced in their past, and that's not okay, by anyone. Regardless of anything. Stories number 5. Neighbor thinks I breed rats in my greenhouse. I've lived in the house I own with my husband for 12 years. It's a terrace built in the 1860s with lots of things like coal chutes and cellars that undercut other people's properties. We live near farmland and were told when we bought it that rats were in the area and to keep a good supply of rat wire to keep them out. There has never been any sign that there have been rats in our house, but we know others have had problems. On to the weirdness. My neighbor and I were on decent terms until he decided not to be and called the council on us for having a compost bin, the water company for something that was found to be his fault. They ruined my 40th birthday by constantly calling round, and he tried to call the police because I laughed at another neighbor calling him a bellend. He threw a fit when we decided we would no longer communicate with him unless absolutely necessary. So he started claiming to anyone who would listen that I trap and breed rats in my greenhouse. He loudly told an exterminator he'd called after seeing one whole rat in my garden this, and I was amused and appalled. I found out when having a casual chat with another neighbor at the bus stop that he's been making these claims for over a year, and then heard it again from the man himself telling someone else. Not once has he mentioned it to us, and he will use any excuse to try to get us to talk to him. The exterminator was adamant that if I was breeding and keeping rats in a 3 by 2 meter greenhouse then the smell and the noise would be unbearable, but the neighbor is undeterred from his delusion. His partner has been in my greenhouse when I showed her my tomato plants and asked if she wanted the excess crop, so she has been trying to tell him that he's delusional too. We've installed cameras in case he tries to take matters into his own hands to prove I am the rat queen, and have been loudly talking about how ridiculous this situation is in his earshot. We know he has issues and has fixated on me as a malign force, another reason for the cameras. We are compiling a spreadsheet of his odd and harassing behavior over the years. I know I'm not breeding rats and do not fear anything he tries to do, but wanted to tell internet strangers to get it off my chest and in the hope that someone will find it amusing. Smiley face. Relevant comments. Commenter 1. I hope you have a stout fence or wall around your property to deter him and act as a definitive boundary so that if he does trespass it's obvious. Reply. It's his fence and we're in the UK where trespass is usually considered a minor, civil matter. It's also in the front garden so fences can't be very high. Does OOP's other neighbors believe him at all regarding the rats? Reply. No one believes him so he doubles down. We have each other's numbers and compare notes. Does the neighbor's partner believe him at all about anything going on at the greenhouse? Reply. We like his partner, not wife, despite their 20-odd-year relationship. In happier times they ate very well from my garden and greenhouse, onions, peppers, chilies, cucumbers and tomatoes. Commenter 2. I'm sorry if you've gotten flack for this, but it's too funny. I'm petty, I'd take up to playing the flute around the yard. Reply, the man is a tit. I'm taking a slow, horticultural revenge by blocking his view of us with tall, spiky, highly scented plants and ensuring that if he wants to talk to us it's entirely on camera. Given the proximity of other neighbors, I can't take loud revenge. Can OOP get in touch with services in their area regarding the neighbor and the possibility of him having mental health issues or dementia? Reply, he's under 50 and adult social care are powerless unless he's arrested or self-surrenders. I've reported and it will lie on file if things escalate. Very difficult to get someone seen by mental health people in the UK if they don't want to. He'd have to be arrested or considered a threat to himself and others for an assessment against his will. Delusions of rat-breeding neighbors don't meet the criteria if he's only talking about it. Update. Hi all. Thoroughly enjoyed the comments on my last post and thought I'd give you a quick update. Just to remind everyone that I'm in the UK. This morning I got a letter from the council's environmental health department to say that my garden was infested with rats and that I had to take immediate action. So I did. I called the extermination company to ask for a statement that there are no rats in my garden or greenhouse. They are happy to oblige. I spoke to all my nice neighbors and they are also happy to vouch that they have seen no evidence of an infestation and find the rat breeding story both bizarre and hilarious. I wrote a very polite and detailed email to the named contact at the council to say, paraphrased of course, that this is the work of a colossal prick and I am considering suing him for malicious complaint, harassment and slander. Also, that I cannot take immediate action to remove an infestation I do not have and would like to know how they came to the conclusion that there is a problem if no one from the council has been round to look. We know the prick next door wants to annoy us into moving but sorry, we're going nowhere. Edit, the extermination company have sent the statement. I called the council but the named contact is on annual leave until after the deadline I was given to contact them. Relevant comments. Does OOP's other neighbors have issues with him? Reply, no one wants to talk to him at all. He's alienated every single neighbor and calls us a malign force who are out to get him. This is his way of trying to find a bogeyman and prove that he's an amazing man for drawing attention to unneighborly behavior. The council had to respond, though I have raised a concern with them that no one actually came round to look. If he'd kept his delusions to himself we wouldn't now be looking to sue him for harassment, as this is one of many times he's called in other bodies for our perceived bad behavior and each time he's proven wrong. OOP responds on the neighbor's strange behaviors. Reply, not a mental health professional but we suspect he is either bipolar or a narcissist or both. Leaning towards both. He's in his 40s and is open about his recreational pill use in the past. We're his obsession, as he thinks we had a malign force that's out to get him. But, yes, he is a wanker. His partner wouldn't disagree and no one thinks she'll stick around once the youngest turns 18 in about a year. It's his house. Until recently his partner and kids weren't allowed to have a key or be in the house when he wasn't there. I could write for days about his controlling behavior. Has the neighbor done similar things to other people in the neighborhood? Reply, he managed to get the other side to move so feels emboldened. They didn't want to but have kids and dogs and were scared of what he might do to them. I hope the new owners will be able to stand against him. We know he escalates and have been waiting for the next one. So far, rats aside, he has called the council on us for having a compost bin, trampled my tomatoes, tried to get myself and the moving neighbors arrested for him being called a bell end, neighbor said it and I laughed, sent the water company to ours for a problem he had with his taps, allowed workmen to use our property as an access point for his roofing work, refused to apologize when these workmen damaged our yard, blamed us for damp and woodworm in his cellar, played music at over 90 decibels, complained that we are causing various smells, accused us of smoking weed, he does, we don't, and called round at all times for a chat. Cameras have stopped the chats as he fears any recording as it cuts off his gas lighting attempts. I have all this noted in a spreadsheet. He is still desperate for us to pay him any attention, good or bad, and hates that his attempts to isolate us from other neighbors have failed. In fact, it's made us closer. Vexatious neighbor complaints and harassment. My neighbor makes repeated complaints to the council about us, the latest being about breeding rats when we have professional evidence that we don't have a rat problem. I've been trying to ignore him but now he's harassed the neighbors on his other side into selling up I need advice. He will not leave us alone, he spreads rumors, visits at odd hours, cameras installed because of this, hovers in his doorway or watches from the windows if we go into the garden, complains of odd smells, accuses us of having drug problems, trespasses to inspect our garden and interrogates our visitors. He's also left gifts and yesterday was staring directly into our window. We're in England and have a spreadsheet of his behavior of over 2 years. Relevant comments. OOP should phone the police due to the possible harassing or stalking. OOP I've largely come to this conclusion but fear the counter-campaign and damage to his family. Who we really like. I'm 95% sure that once the council find in our favor that I'll be taking action, as I just want to be able to sit in my garden again without being watched or contacted. Commenter 1. What were the gifts he left? Reply. Cuttings from his plants. Update 2. Short update to say this may go quiet for a while as I have called the police and will be making a statement tomorrow. I wasn't sure that this route was appropriate, but I've taken some legal advice and it has reassured me that I need to do this to protect myself and my peace. I also told this story in my local and they were supportively outraged and also advised that they would absolutely call the police if they were in my position. I've spent quite some time researching UK laws on stalking and harassment, burdens of proof and the average person argument. It basically says if an average person would be concerned by this person's behavior towards them, then it meets the criteria. Fascinating stuff. I'm also now half and half about whether the letter from the council is legit, as it is riddled with errors and inconsistencies with extremely vague detail for key points. The kind where the Microsoft grammar check would tell you off for using the passive voice, smiley face. I'll find out tomorrow, though if it is legit I'll have to stop myself from telling them it seems to have all the quality markers of a text from HMRC, that's the tax office for non-UK friends, telling you to pay thousands in unpaid tax and iTunes cards. If it isn't, then I'm adding fraud for the purpose of causing distress to the list of complaints. Wish me luck, guys. Might be a while, but I'll see you on the other side and maybe have that rat party. Please bring your rat costumes, extra long tails dress code, and a delicacy cheese from your country. Edit. Council letter was legit, but the person who handled the case had been moved from another area and this was her first assignment. A long litany of failures, but upshot is that I have been cleared and there is no case to answer. I mentioned that a 2-minute conversation with their guy would have avoided all this malarkey and apologies were made. That bit is done. Police matter is ongoing. Relevant comments. Commenter 1. If the letter is not legit, you should also tell the council about it. I believe that this is a crime in the UK. As for your ratatouille crazy neighbor, good luck on that. I am bringing a whole tray of cheese from France at your party. Reply. It is a crime, and the council take a very dim view. Prosecution would be out of my hands for that one. Commenter 2. If it was in your mail, they might be able to tack on wire fraud and messing with the post office, or if he placed it in your box himself, more issues, as, at least in the USA, placing anything that doesn't have a stamp on it in a mailbox is also a big issue. Reply. We don't generally have mailboxes, as mail, or post as we call it, goes through the letterbox. Most post doesn't have a stamp on, as it's local crap or part of Royal Mail sponsors junk mail that gets delivered whether you want it or not. The lighter side of rats and cheese. Hi all. You may know me as the one who was accused of breeding rats in the greenhouse by a rather odd neighbor. Suggestions were made for a rat party and I responded that it sounded great and that people should bring a specialty cheese from their home country. I'm from the UK where many think our food is generally awful. It's not, by the way, but our cheese is great. I thought it might be nice to share our love of cheese and accompanying things from areas around the world. My favorites, UK only, though I love many other cheeses: Lancashire, Caerphilly, Red Leicester, White Stilton, try with rich fruitcake or a mince pie, you will not regret it, black pepper cheddar. Until I can update about the harassment case, this may be my only outlet. New updates. Editor's note, OOP posted 2 new updates, with the latest one being over 1 month old. They were not posted here onto the sub. Rats and neighbor. Hi all. A quick update but with a very low amount of rat-related activity. The neighbor has had a camera installed above his front door. He is perfectly within his rights to do so. This has coincided with him not instantly appearing in the doorway whenever I am in the garden, so it's a given that his camera is recording my garden. I have added this to the police complaint as something to investigate, but was thrilled to know that 2 of my other neighbors have filed complaints to the council about it, as it's a wide-angle one and could potentially be recording their kids and or seeing through their windows. Once recording kids is involved, the council have to act quickly. We have blackout zones on our cameras and have shown these to our neighbors, except him, even though his garden is the biggest blackout zone. I'm sure he'll plead that we're watching him, but, again, the evidence is on our side. We're unsure if he wants to record to be just an interfering knob or if his delusions are so bad that he needs to prove somehow that the rat breeding really is happening. Anything he records is inadmissible if it's of our property. Couple of things from comments. Neighbor and his partner are not married. He refuses to marry her for many reasons that are not my story to tell but are part of his control at all costs agenda. She hates being referred to as girlfriend or wife, so I will respect that. The council is local government and not any kind of HOA. Most of the UK would consider an HOA as a massive overreach and invasive to the extreme. Being told to control infestations, even if you don't have them, is fine compared to being told that your grass is 0.000067 inches too long or that your door is the wrong shade of woodland green. I know they're not all awful, but Reddit is the place for horror stories. Horticultural revenge is a glorified way of saying I'm planting a hedge. This hedge will be a glorious array of colors and scents designed to be highly attractive to insects and birds whilst also being tall and thorny. Fences can't be very high, but there is no legal limit to plant height and no right to light laws. He can only prune what grows over the fence. Very small update to neighbor thinks I breed rats in the greenhouse. Hi all. Some have asked for an update, so here it is. Apologies that it won't contain much as he's gone pretty quiet. Since the cameras were installed, he has stopped popping round for a chat or loitering in places he can see us. He's still annoying us by stomping around his house and the occasional short blast of crappy music, but these are fewer and further apart. I know he overheard both conversations I had with the police, and I think it's unsettled him into not exactly being a great neighbor but not being as much of a creepy invasive bastard. His partner seems to be taking a role in managing him. Other neighbors have also noticed that she's around more and he isn't trying to insert himself into their business as much. There were a few conversations we could hear through the walls, he's very loud, that seemed to confirm this. The slow, horticultural revenge is going well. Spring is just around the corner and my plants are starting to show signs of life. I still feel the need to garden when he's not around, unless I'm in the, still rat-free, greenhouse, but it seems he now feels the same about me. He stopped trying to take photos of the greenhouse when he saw me watching him, and I put a small sign up reminding him that taking pictures of private property under these circumstances is illegal. Any photo he took and tried to use against us would have this visible. I debated decorating it with a rat but decided against it. He's not happy that the bird feeders are back but can't do anything as they now have reinforced waste catchers, and as his last complaint wasn't upheld, he is on thin ice about this with the powers that be. Someone else made a complaint about his camera, but I don't know if that came to anything as it's still there. Whether it's attached to anything is another matter, as he's generally inept with technology. We're planning a retractable awning for the front of the house. Windows are full east so the living room gets really hot in summer, and once that's installed and the plants are grown and in bloom, it will cut off any view of us. I checked fence planning laws and it seems nearly everyone on our street is breaking them, but we need to be squeaky clean or it'll be another council letter. Maybe by summer he'll be back to his old ways, but he seems a little chastened. You never know, maybe he's read my posts, recognized himself and realized that not only is he a colossal prick, but that I can prove it and will. The police case is ongoing, but as he's backed off it will just chug along in the background unless he crosses the line again. Relevant comments. Commenter 1, what a strange tale. Do you think he has some mental health issues? Perhaps dementia or some sort of nervous break? It seems suspect that he went from being friendly to full-blown douche. Hopefully for your sake, he stays quiet. Reply, he changed as soon as we said no to him. He escalated, lost and keeps doubling down and losing again and again. We know he did a lot of pills in the past and even his dad thinks he's weird. He's a douche to his dad too. Commenter 2, how old is the guy? I was reading this thinking he was elderly and perhaps senile, but you mentioning his father makes it seem like he might be younger. What exactly did you say no to? I didn't catch that in your posts. Reply, we didn't move the compost bin the second he asked us to. Annoyingly, we had consulted him about the initial position, but he suddenly took issue after about 18 months. Commenter 3, if you're holding your breath waiting for any modicum of self-awareness on his part, then I'm afraid you're in for an untimely end. I do love the idea of horticultural revenge though. Hopefully there'll be many small furry critters and birds in your garden this year to keep him busy monitoring. Reply, I'm not really, just hopeful that his very sensible partner is reining in the worst of his behavior. The horticultural revenge has been added to today with the addition of fast-growing, highly scented flowering annuals that I know grow well in my garden and reach dizzying heights and displays. Commenter 4, the sign that would show up in photos was a very good idea. I'm interested in this catchment for your bird feeders. My mom lives near a creek and the rats are such a problem she can't have bird feeders anymore, even though she had so many morning dives they cleaned any seeds that fell. Look into a product called Gila Heat Control Film. It's not shiny reflective or anything weird looking from either side of the window. You apply with glass cleaner on a clean window. We've put it up in several rooms in our house that get direct sun and it has made the feeling in the room like 5 to 10 degrees cooler. We have a retractable awning over a sliding glass door in the one room with a high ceiling and no option for a ceiling fan, but we only have to open it about 3.5 feet so we still feel like we get nice light in the room, but the smaller rooms and even the top of a window box that was feeling like a parabolic mirror standing in a certain spot in the kitchen. If you have double-paned windows you do need to install it on the exterior to not interfere with the window's function, and it lasts about 3 years there for us before it's less clear. Enjoy your gardening this year. Reply, I got my seed catchers online and they're under specialist feeders that block large birds so spillage is minimal anyway, it just gives him less ammunition if I actively block feeding the big birds that can empty a feeder in seconds. We have the heat control film, but our old windows don't allow for great adhesion. Plus we have a legitimate reason to further physically block his view from multiple angles if we go for the awning, and it will make a nice outdoor seating area. I've had a lovely day gardening today. Started lots of tall fast-growing annual plants to weave amongst the shrubs and bushes, and I hope the birds, bees and butterflies appreciate the poppies, nasturtiums, honeysuckle and sweet peas. Stories number 6. AITA for not letting my brother-in-law move into our house. I apologize in advance for how long this is. My brother-in-law has been in prison since 2018. He was using drugs and broke into a hotel room. When the police showed up, he attacked the police officer. So I believe he was convicted of a felony, but I don't know the exact outcome. A little backstory: although my husband and I grew up together, high school sweethearts, we had very different upbringings. I know I lived a very sheltered life growing up. My parents always made a big deal about drugs and doing well in school and so on, and that has always stuck with me. My husband's childhood was a lot harder. His parents were both drug addicts, left the country at one point because they were in trouble with the law, had the kids taken away from them multiple times, and a lot of other just gut-wrenching stories. My husband, however, is an amazing person, never got into drugs, is very compassionate and always wants to help out family members that are struggling. I feel like his upbringing has made him a lot more understanding when it comes to drugs and other issues like that. But I really admire him for this understanding quality, and in a lot of ways I think he has opened my eyes and made me a lot more compassionate. He comes from a huge family. Not only does he have multiple siblings, but he also has an insane amount of aunts, uncles and cousins. It's pretty cool because our kids have so much fun whenever we go back home to visit. There have been several instances where my husband has asked to have a family member move in with us at a time when they were struggling, and I have always agreed, but always had one rule: absolutely no drugs in my house. We have small children, and that is a boundary I am not willing to negotiate on. No drugs and no one actively using drugs. He had a cousin live in our garage at one point because he was having a hard time finding housing. He was very respectful and ended up staying with us for 3 months until he found his own place. After that, a different cousin was going through a divorce and had nowhere to go. He stayed in our garage for about 6 months before he got back on his feet. About 5 years ago, our YO nephew got very heavily involved in drugs. He was causing issues at his own home where he had a younger brother and younger sister and ended up getting arrested for something, I don't remember exactly what. Instead of going to juvenile hall, he was placed in a placement program or rehab type of program. It seemed like he was doing well in the program and everything was getting back on track. When he completed the program, though, he could not move back in with his mom, husband's sister, because he was now 18 and she lives in government housing, and apparently that was against the rules. Not entirely sure what happened there. My husband who is also his godfather, asked if he could move in with us. I was hesitant because of the drug use history, but we agreed to give him a chance. Our rules that we agreed on: no drugs or drug use. He had to actively look for a job and pay a small amount of rent once he got a job, that we decided we would to hold on to for him and give to him as a security deposit once he found his own place. He ended up staying with us for about 6 months in our spare bedroom. We turned our daughter's playroom into a room for him. In that time he hardly ever left his room, would sleep until about 3-4 p.m. When he did come out of the room, he would leave messes all over, and never attempted to look for a job, as far as I know. One weekend we went back home to visit family and he came with us. He ended up using drugs again and decided to just not come back with us. It was a weird situation, and I feel like there was tension between my husband's sister and us after that. He didn't really tell me everything that was going on because he says that I'm judgmental and I just don't see things the same way. Fast forward to last summer. My husband and I have been having some issues in our marriage. Nothing serious, but just not getting along and having a hard time seeing eye to eye on things. At this point our communication has been almost non-existent because, like I said, we were going through a rough patch. Well, one night he left around 9 p.m. and as he was leaving he causally said, "My brother is getting out of prison and I'm going to pick him up and bring him here," then left. I was extremely upset about this because I felt that we didn't get a chance to discuss it. I never got to have any say in it and felt like I was just forced into this situation. I was already sleeping when they got home, so we didn't discuss it until the next day. In the morning, he said he would like him to live with us until he gets on his feet. I was hesitant at first. We have 3 daughters, high school, middle school and elementary age, and I just was not 100% comfortable with this. We went back and forth, but eventually I agreed to let him stay with the following conditions: no drugs in the house, no using drugs at all, he has to be looking for work and try to get back on his feet ASAP. My husband told me he thought it would only be a couple of months at the most. 5 months later, and his brother had not made any effort to get a job, was not applying anywhere and did not seem to even be looking. He then started disappearing on weekends, which seemed weird to me because he didn't know anyone where we live, so where was he going? I asked my husband about it and he would get upset or annoyed and just brush it off as nothing. Right before Thanksgiving he said he was going to look for a bike, and just disappeared. Didn't come back, husband never heard from him, just gone. He left all of his clothes and everything that we bought him at our house. I asked my husband if he was concerned and he would just brush it off or get upset at me for asking about it. A couple of weeks go by and we find out from another family member that he is living in a tent in a nearby city with our nephew, the one who previously stayed with us. We knew that nephew was basically homeless and very heavy into drugs at this point. My husband was very upset over the whole situation, but there really wasn't a lot we could do. I think he has always felt like he needs to take care of siblings because he is the oldest child. So he has always had this extreme guilt over that. Finally, to the point of the AITA, my husband recently went looking for his brother and had lunch with him. His brother broke down crying and said he left the house because he wanted to use again and knew that wasn't allowed in our house. I actually respect that decision. He said he doesn't want to live like this anymore and wants to come back to our house. My husband came home and asked me what I thought. I said I can't have him come live in our house because of our kids and my rule about drugs, but I would be okay with him coming back after he entered into a rehab for a couple of months. I even reached out to a sober living program and found a spot for him, offered to cover the cost and get him back on his feet. My husband told this option to his brother and he became angry, saying he didn't need rehab and didn't want to do that and now won't talk to my husband anymore. My husband is blaming me for having too many rules and not being more understanding. It is causing a lot of tension between us now, and he's been telling his other family members that we can't help out because I am not willing to have him in our house. Am I being unreasonable here? Edit to add, I know I do have some resentment for how the whole situation was handled from the start, and I'm trying not to let that get in the way of being fair and understandable. Stories number 7. AITA for ending my marriage because I couldn't handle the reality of marriage to a widow with kids. I, 32M, got married almost 3 years ago. Right now I'm going through a divorce from my wife, 31F. My wife was a very young widow with 2 kids when I met her. We dated for almost 2 years before getting engaged, and we were engaged for 5 months before we got married. My wife's kids are 12 and 13 as I'm writing this, and I walked away a little over 6 months ago now. My wife's late husband died suddenly about a year and a half before we met, so looking back I can see how fast it could all be for the kids. I can see why maybe it was too fast. But I have known people who remarried even faster and were happy in their second marriages and the kids did fine. So I was running on the belief that this would be the same for us. During the dating period things went well. I got along well with my wife's kids. They accepted me being around and we were building up a solid relationship. My wife and I enjoyed our time together during that time, and I felt like she was truly committed to me. Even when we began living together it was good. Only after the wedding the kids withdrew from me. They were no longer okay with me driving them around. They would reject my offers to help with homework or take them someplace and would instead say they wanted their mom to do it. Anytime we talked they would share less about their day with me. If I asked them if they were okay I got a shrug or a yeah. Before the wedding they didn't mind saying the good and the bad. They also looked at photos of their dad more, and I noticed some of his stuff appearing around the living area of the house more. My wife's parents commented that the kids hadn't really looked at the photos so frequently or scattered their dad's things around the house like that since he'd been newly gone, for the first 6 months to be more accurate. I never minded having the photos out or even their dad's stuff. When we started living together and moved into the house I explained they could have photos and his things around the place. They chose to keep them in their rooms at the time. And I could be a little sensitive to what was happening. Maybe I was just never cut out for it. But at times I felt like they were trying to mark the house as their dad's house. One time I really felt this was when their dad's mug suddenly appeared at the spot at the table I would sit at every time. I'd been sitting there for months and suddenly his mug was there and it remained there, and whenever we would eat together they would stare at me to see if I'd sit there or somewhere else. I talked to my wife about it and she told me I did the right thing taking another seat. They also started putting photos of when their dad was alive in more prominent positions and would hide ones that included me behind them. I asked one day if they had moved the photos and they said yeah, that they wanted the photos of their family to be seen. Going alongside this my wife was acting differently. She made less time for us. When we were together she wasn't as affectionate and I caught her playing with her first wedding ring, which she wore around her neck, more. She called her latte husband's family her in-laws again but didn't call my family her in-laws. Her priority was spending time with her late husband's parents and siblings, and she would choose to spend time with them over mine even if the kids were not going to be joining us. Often she would forget when we had plans with my family. She really made zero effort with my family, and my family tried to get close to her and the kids. Plans we had discussed before marriage were also changed. We had discussed having kids together and agreed we wanted one or two, but then she said she didn't know after we were married. She was not the same with other people. She was just as open and affectionate as before with everyone else. She enjoyed herself. But it was like being reminded of me was a bucket of ice water over her head. I tried to discuss it with her, but she was busy, or she'd say she had no idea she was doing it and promised to be more conscious, but she wasn't. And then she started talking about her late husband more. I would try to engage with her about him, but she'd carry on without me and almost seemed to dislike me talking about him. In the end, I couldn't do it. I know there are ways to try and make it work, but I didn't feel like anyone else would want to. So I told my wife I couldn't do it anymore and said I wanted a divorce. She looked startled at first and then asked me why, and we talked briefly about it before I left the house. We did go to a couple of therapy sessions together after the separation, but she closed down certain topics which made me more secure in my decision. And her kids did not miss me at all. Apparently once I was gone, the kids told their aunt that the house felt like a home at last. They didn't say it as in now that he's gone, but it was implied. My wife's parents don't understand why I didn't stay and fight for us all to come together and be a family. They said I gave up too fast and I knew what I was getting into when I married their daughter. My wife has asked for us to work it out, but I don't see a future for us. Does all of this make me TA? Stories number 8. AITA for telling my dad's fiancé my mom will always come before her. Kinda a long story, but not really. I'm 16. My dad cheated on my mom with a woman called Ronnie when I was a kid. My parents divorced because of it and my dad moved in with Ronnie. I found out everything from my cousin and it made me really dislike my dad and Ronnie. I was 6 when my parents separated. Dad moved in with Ronnie and I found out why. My dad and Ronnie were together until I was 8 and then they broke up. Dad dated a bit and then he and Ronnie got back together. Then they broke up after another year. Dad dated some more. Then they got back together again 2-ish years ago and now they're engaged. My relationship with Dad improved a little at one point. I still disliked Ronnie a lot, but I liked other girlfriends of my dad's more. One reason he gives for those relationships ending and him going back to Ronnie is the fact she has always tried really hard with me. He wants that. He didn't like feeling like his exes could be fine with me not being there. But he's fine with me not wanting Ronnie there, but I guess that's nothing to do with them. Ronnie has been jealous of my relationship with my mom since she and Dad became official the first time. She tried to be equal or even more than my mom, but she never stood a chance with me. It drove her crazy. Apparently it was the reason for one of their breakups. The fact that I was cold and distant and never let her in. I was passively civil always, but that was it. You could see I didn't like her and wasn't trying with her. I didn't have the same issues with the other women, but I also liked that they weren't trying to be mommy 2.0. This last time Dad got back together with Ronnie, our relationship with Dad got worse again. Probably the worst it's ever been. He told me he loved her and she was the one and he wanted us to be a family. And I told him I would never want to be a family with her, and if that meant we weren't a family anymore either, then I'd deal with it. He asked me to forget about the cheating and accept that he loves Ronnie and he hasn't loved my mom for a very long time. I told him I couldn't accept it and he couldn't make me accept it. We're now in this really awkward place. Ronnie's been trying extra hard since she moved back in with Dad. She keeps trying to make plans with me. Some stuff I was planning to do with Mom and I told her so, and other times I just didn't want to go with her. Now she's making the most out of the wedding when Dad has his custody week with me. She dragged me dress shopping a few times and tried to make plans with me. Whenever I was dragged dress shopping, I ignored her, buried myself in my phone for the 1 to 2 hour long consultations. The last time we went she found a dress she really loved and I wasn't even paying attention. I was texting with Mom about something and Ronnie took my phone from my hand and saw who I was texting. I took the phone back off her and told her to never do that again. Ronnie was crying and she told me even for a moment like this she couldn't leave my mom out of it and enjoy the moment with her. That she'll always come second. She told me she could be on her deathbed and I'd choose to grab a coffee with my mom instead of saying goodbye to her. I rolled my eyes and she kept rambling on. So then I looked her in the eye and told her my mom would always come first. That it didn't matter what she's going through because I love my mom and would pick my mom even if I didn't have to. I told her I would choose a stranger over her. And the sooner she accepts it the better. My dad got so mad at me because Ronnie didn't continue with her consultation and she cried for hours when we got back. She cried the next day too. Stories number 6. AITA for not wanting to give my mom 90% of the inheritance my grandma is leaving me. Honestly, I don't think I'm in the wrong here, I'm more so looking for advice and outside opinions. Or maybe I am actually a terrible person and this will just be an eye-opener. Either way, here's the info. My grandma is going to be leaving each grandchild $100,000, which was originally supposed to go to my mom and aunt, but my grandma changed the will to spite them because their relationship is complicated. My mom was depending on that for retirement since, for reasons I don't think I need to get into, but is related to my grandma, her and my dad's entire 401k was drained about 10 years ago. My dad works full-time with constant overtime and my mom hasn't worked in over 15 years and only just applied for disability recently. Their stocks are nose-diving, but they'll be selling the house and downsizing later on, and the house is worth roughly $350,000. My mom says she'll give me $10,000 of it, but honestly I want closer to $40,000. I have a fraction of what she wants to give me in savings and more would be life-changing. I could even consider getting a house in the next couple years rather than wait till I'm 50. The thing is, this money will go directly to me, she doesn't get to intercept it, so I could just take what I want and give them the rest. The problem with that is I love my parents and I want a good relationship with them, and if I try to take more they'll likely hate me. My mom has done nothing but constantly guilt-trip me leading up to this, and on top of that my dad's name is on my car registration, so they could take my car. If that happens I won't be talking to them anytime soon, and I don't think they want that either, so they probably won't try to take my car. Maybe $10,000 is plenty and I'm just being greedy. My relationship with my parents is important to me, but even double would completely change my life. I just want to hear what other people think. Maybe that's a bad idea, but I'm so lost right now. Edit. Okay, wow, this is a bit overwhelming. Here's a bit more info for some more context. My grandma hasn't passed yet, but she's had a stroke and does not have the mental capacity to change the will. To the people calling us both vultures, are you crazy? Of course I'm trying to plan before the storm hits. I can't just hoard the money and tell my mom I'll think about it. I need to have a plan now before my grandma dies, and so my mom doesn't think I'm keeping all the money for me while I think. My grandma also didn't loot my parents' 401k, they went to court because my grandma sued my mom. It's really complicated and even I don't know all the details, so I left it out. Edit 2. Didn't think I left out that many details. Sorry guys, but this post wasn't made for validation. I don't even really agree with the whole take the money and run crowd. I was 9 when my grandma sued my mom. I don't know what happened. All I know is that my grandpa died in the middle of their divorce and he was going to leave my mom money. My grandma changed the will because she still had access to it, and their relationship was terrible at the time and still is. I haven't talked to my grandma since I was 11, since my mom wouldn't let me. My mom tried to take some things out of the house that my grandpa wanted her to have and my grandma sued her. My mom was held in contempt of court and lost everything in savings. That's genuinely all I know. I live states away from my parents and I'm in my 20s and they're in their 60s. I have a brother, so they're already getting $90,000 from him. Also, this is overwhelming as hell. Please contain the wild Reddit warrior attitudes. I didn't post this for funsies and there are some wild comments on this post. Edit 3. Some people have brought up my mom's unemployment, so let me elaborate on that a bit. She used to have her own business that made her over $1 million in salary, which is what she's told me. The court case was so traumatizing for her that she stopped working and quit her business. She was never a stay-at-home mom before this happened. Both my parents worked and my mom was the breadwinner. Stories number 9. AITA for being angry at my fiancé for telling his mom about our loss. I 25F lost my baby at 23 weeks and everyone knew I was pregnant because we told them at 13 weeks. It was hard to lose my baby, but I took my time to process the loss. I was hospitalized due to severe preeclampsia, then I had a placental abruption later that week and delivered our stillborn son. Last week I was with my MIL, and she mentioned something about the loss, and then I asked her how she knows, and she told me that my fiancé Matt 27M told her. She then told me that it's okay and I shouldn't worry, we can always try again. I did not say anything to her, but I was so irritated that Matt told her when I wanted to do it at my own time. I know they would have figured it out, but I just wanted some time to process and deal with this. The whole afternoon was filled with my MIL giving advice and trying to tell me how to keep a pregnancy. When I got home, Matt and I got into an argument. I told him how I do not appreciate him blurting out my business and how he should have waited until we were both ready to share the loss. He told me his mom is family, and he was venting to her as he was stressed. I expressed sympathy for him about that, but I explained to him that I did not appreciate him telling her this early on. He got frustrated and told me to get over it, and that I cannot be hung up over one loss when people have more. He also said if we try again, I will feel better and will forget I even went through this pain. I told him he does not get it. I felt the little soft flutters and I watched him grow just for it to come to an abrupt end. I blame myself even now, but he just talked as though our son was nothing to him. I told him that I definitely would not be trying again and that I am healing, and I yelled at him to tell his mother to stop being invasive and insensitive. He told me to stop being dramatic and walked out yelling, "Don't wait up for me." I kid you not, this man left me in the house alone after we lost our son 4 weeks ago. He came back this morning at 4 a.m. and got ready for work then left. We have not talked yet. I'm assuming he told his mom because I have 3 missed calls from her. I am not planning on answering her calls right now. I told my mom, and she told me to give him some time, he will come around. AITA for being angry, he told his mom. I was going to tell her but not this soon. Stories number 10. My F19 boyfriend, M21, of 8 months confessed to having HIV only after I confronted him about it. What do I even do? This is going to be a jumble of thoughts because I'm still in shock, but please help. I've been with my boyfriend for nearly 8 months and I am completely in love with him. We've had our ups and downs, but we've always been willing to communicate and work through whatever's been an issue in our relationship. My boyfriend has always had a vague immune system problem that I've been somewhat aware of. All I truly knew was that he'd gotten pretty ill around his high school days and it, in turn, made his mother paranoid about his health. I knew he absolutely has to take these pills that he never hid all the time for said illness. I remember asking early on in the relationship, and I swear if he'd told me they were for HIV I would remember. I recently visited him and while he stepped out I grew curious about his pills and snagged pictures of the bottles so I could sow my own research, to be as aware of his well-being and such. I instantly went numb when both search results were talking about HIV treatment and I immediately texted him asking. He called me instead and, infuriatingly enough, he was defensive about why I was asking about what his pills are for at the beginning of the phone call. He eventually told me it's undetectable and can't be transmitted, and that he'd been waiting for the right time to tell me because it's a big thing. Apparently I'd said insensitive things about HIV-infected people before that made him even more reluctant. But at no point did he acknowledge the principle of him simply not disclosing this to me, untransmittable or not. We've been intimate since pretty much the beginning of our relationship, most times with no protection. And this being a crime aside, I panicked and blocked him, but I'm shaken, and lost, and hurt. What do I even do? I apologize if this is unreadable or there's typos. I can't even think right now. Stories number 11. My husband was shot. I should start by saying miraculously he survived. Without going into too much detail because it's still an open investigation and because it's all over the local news and I don't want to dox myself. I just need to get it off my chest because an already tragic situation has gotten worse since we found out the person who shot him is a family friend's teenage son. I'm so heartbroken and devastated and have so many mixed emotions. I've been crying for days. Here's basically what happened. My husband got a flat tire and he was near my friend's house, so he decided to pull into their driveway to see if it was okay if he pumped his tire in their yard. He has a compressor of his own in his vehicle. He thought nothing of it because these are people we've known well over 20 years. He didn't see their vehicle in the drive, so he went to knock on the door. Before he could even reach the door he heard their son ask who it was. He said, "I'm friends of your parents," and said their names. Next thing he said, the son raised a gun to him from behind the screen door. My husband raised his hands up and the boy immediately shot him through the hand. Then my husband took off running. The young man chased him for 2 blocks until my husband finally collapsed from blood loss, and then tragically he walked up to my husband while he was on the ground and shot him in the back of the head. I can't wrap my head around any of it. I feel like I'm living in a nightmare I can't wake up from. I don't believe he recognized my husband, but even still there was never any altercation of any kind and my husband doesn't carry a weapon in his vehicle, so he was unarmed. I keep thinking maybe he was scared because his parents have been known to run with the wrong crowd, but in that case why after the hand shot not run inside and call 911, why chase him and then shoot him again while he was down? His mom has been a lifelong friend of my family's and her husband has been friends with us since they've been together almost 20 years. Before this we didn't have any kind of issues with each other. We don't hang out of anything since really becoming adults, but we have a long history and have love for each other's family. I can't even speak to them because I was advised not to by police. My husband almost died and I lost a lifelong friendship, and a kid just ruined his entire life. I would say things couldn't get worse, but this is just the beginning. Now there's going to be trials and everything that comes along with that. My husband really didn't deserve this. He's a great man and the best dad to our kids. I just can't believe this. We are so traumatized right now. Stories number 12. When I was a kid, I drugged my dad for a whole month. Warning, contains abuse. My father was a raging asshole. He used to beat us and yell at us about how worthless we were constantly. My mother finally had enough, and said that either he gets psychological help, or she leaves him. He went to the doctor, and was prescribed an antipsychotic medication, which made sense to us kids. because he was psychotic. When he started taking it, he magically became nice. No more beatings, no more yelling, it was paradise. Then, after a while, he turned mean again. We asked our mom what was going on, and she said that he stopped taking his medication because he didn't like the side effects, whatever that meant. We felt doomed. Until one day, my mom accidentally left his prescription bottle in the kitchen. My sister and I looked at each other and didn't even have to say a thing. She got out a spoon and I ground the white pill into powder, and we put it in his orange juice. What a nice day we had. We did this every single day, enjoying our temporary happy home, until the prescription ran out. It was the best month of our childhood, and I'm not sorry. Edit. Wow, thanks for all of your kind words and the award, this is unexpected but greatly appreciated. To those that asked, I'm doing fine now and live a blessed life. And no, I don't recommend people do this at home, I was just a kid during desperate times. Stories number 13. How to stop viewing myself as a kid. 31F I'm a grown-ass adult but in my head I feel like I'm still 17 or 22. I know that's not necessarily abnormal but I feel like it's detrimental to my self-image. I'll try to explain. My sophomore year of high school I was at a graduation party talking to someone with my mom and older brother. Two girls came up to say hi to him. They were tall, beautiful and had sundresses on. I felt plain in comparison in my Bermuda shorts, acne, and glasses. I assumed they were seniors, but it turns out we were in the same grade, which made me feel worse. Why wasn't I pretty like them? Luckily, puberty was kind to me and I know I'm pretty now. Even still, I can't get those feelings out of my head. Another example, at my old job when I was at the bank making deposits, the teller was a beautiful young woman. We got to talking and it turned out that she was just about to turn the same age as me, then 30. I always assume everyone else is older, smarter, and has things more together than me. Why can't I turn that lens on myself and stop feeling like a kid looking up at all the adults in the room? I know other people perceive me in a good light and I know I am smart, capable, and talented. I come off as confident to anyone who meets me and that's by design. But how do I really embrace and internalize that confidence and self-assuredness? Stories number 14. I was at a funeral and work wouldn't stop calling texting. Got an afternoon off work but they won't stop calling and texting me. So I have a funeral, an aunt died and the burial was today so my supervisor gave me the afternoon off so that I can at least attend the burial. I had to go in the morning and while there I told the entire team that I won't be available in the afternoon because I'll be attending a burial. Even with this information, they won't stop calling and texting, asking things which they can easily figure out without my help. It's really annoying and I can't help wondering how people can be so unsympathetic. They know I'm at a funeral, surely they can give me some space, it's not like we're doctors, no one will die because of my absence. Even if they fail to do the tasks today because I'm not around, I am going in tomorrow and can pick it up. Would it be unprofessional to call them out on this? Stories number 15. AITA for not wanting to buy a second seat for my wife. My wife has struggled forever with her weight, and hit a point where she just gave up trying to do anything about it. Her health is in shambles, her blood work is awful, she's pre-diabetic with high blood pressure and has liver issues, and I'm frustrated with it. She says she wants to lose weight and I do what I can to support her, I cook healthy food, try and gently keep her on track, but I don't want to enable her either. For the record, her weight doesn't make me any less attracted to her, I love her. I don't tell her she needs to lose weight or anything of the sort. I don't even bring it up unless she does. This is what brings my dilemma. We're flying to Virginia in May for a graduation for her nephew. We have everything booked but the flight, as my wife refuses to purchase a second seat on the plane. When we looked at flights initially a year ago, I did gently bring up that we may end up needing to purchase a second seat, and I asked her how she wanted to handle it. I mentioned it to try and avoid her being humiliated on the airplane, and trying to be proactive about it. She flat out stated she will not buy a second ticket, and if they try and force her to she just won't go. I am upset because I feel like this puts a lot of time and money on the line, and that I'd rather buy the seat and have it refunded later. We would buy a refundable ticket for the second seat, but she is flat out refusing. My friends are telling me that I should just buy the seat for her so it doesn't mess up my trip. However, I won't be going either if she doesn't as it's her nephew. I've never met this person, it feels weird to just show up to his graduation alone. Lastly, it feels like I'm enabling her in some way. She's known about this for over a year, and hasn't done anything to better her health, just talked about it. I feel like the only way we can go and enjoy the trip is if I just buy the seats. So, AITA for not wanting to buy a second seat for her, as I feel like I am enabling her, or do I just bite the bullet in support of my wife? ETA, she is 5 feet 9 inches and is 470 pounds. Stories number 16. My 29F, reluctance to get a total hysterectomy makes my husband, 31M, question my child-free state. I want to start saying I have always been firmly child-free. I have never wanted children. I also have endometriosis. I was diagnosed at 16 with laparoscopic surgery, but it wasn't able to be removed because it was too close to arteries. So I have been treating it with birth control since then. That's been no issue because I didn't want kids, so I was okay with never stopping it. My husband is also strongly child-free and has overall been supportive of my endometriosis journey, but I've been on so many forms of birth control. Multiple types of pills, the patch, the depot shot, Nexplanon, and latest is the IUD. With the pills, they tend to not help my symptoms. And the few that did, stopped helping after some time. Each method that followed did the same thing. I'd be mostly pain and symptom-free, but after a year or two, the symptoms would return. My latest method was a hormonal IUD which helped for about 2 years, but lately I am cramping every day. It's starting to impact my life. I moved recently and had to find a new gynecologist. I know how gynos are with endometriosis, so I sent them all the medical records I had relating to it. I had a yearly exam and made sure to bring up how it's been affecting me lately and all previous methods I tried to treat it and how it couldn't be removed through surgery. The new gynecologist brought up a total hysterectomy with the ovaries. This would remove my cervix, uterus, and ovaries. I did not expect to be offered that, and I told my husband when I got home that I am not sure if I want to do that, and he got very upset. He thinks because I don't instantly want to do the surgery, I secretly want kids and am going to trap him with a baby. That's not the case. I have been very firm on my birth control, and if there was even a slip where I missed a pill or got the shot late, I would insist on a condom. I do not want kids. Being pregnant is one of my worst nightmares. I am not sure about the hysterectomy because I am not sure I am mentally able to handle that big of a surgery. It's a keyhole surgery, so it won't be too much of an incision, but the recovery can be rough. I don't think I have it in me to deal with it right now. I also am so reluctant to have my ovaries removed because I don't want to rely on HRT to get my necessary hormones for the rest of my life. And I need the ovaries removed because I have endometriosis beyond my uterus. It's growing on my bowels, I have scarring from it. That can't be removed, and also a normal hormone cycle might cause flare-ups in those parts, from what I understand. But he thinks because I didn't immediately say yes, it means I want kids. I've tried explaining to him why I am reluctant, but he just won't listen. I've tried telling him it's not like a vasectomy. The recovery is longer and harder and the effects are more. And other people I've talked to about this tend to agree with him, just less intensely. They don't think I'm going to baby trap him, but think it's a sign I'm not solid on my child-free stance. How can I effectively explain that me being unsure of the hysterectomy is not because I secretly want children? Stories number 17. AITA for making cinnamon bread for my sisters-in-law when my MIL is allergic to cinnamon. I, F22, have jumped on the sourdough bread train. I now make the bread we eat instead of buying it, and when I make a loaf of bread, I post a picture of it and post it on my story. I've had several people slide up and say they would love a loaf, including my in-laws. Right now, we are home visiting our family. I brought my starter and baking supplies to make loaves for the people who have asked, while staying at my mom's. For my in-laws, I made 3 loaves. The SILs, high school age, wanted a cinnamon swirl loaf, so that's what I made for them. My MIL says she is allergic to cinnamon, so I made her 2 small loaves, regular and a cheddar jalapeno. I baked her loaves first to avoid any cross-contamination, and I wrapped the cinnamon loaf and put it in its own container separate from the loaves that would go to MIL. When I dropped them off, I made sure to tell them that 1 loaf was cinnamon. Today, while we were there, MIL cut herself a slice of the cinnamon bread saying she wanted to taste it. All of us said she really shouldn't since she's allergic to cinnamon. She said she would avoid the cinnamon swirl and just eat the plain bread. After more protest, it was clear that she was not going to listen. She ate it, said it was good, and cut another slice. After a while, nothing happened. My husband and I assumed that maybe she isn't as allergic as she thought and everything was fine. We went back to my mom's house, and an hour later both of our phones started blowing up. MIL says I gave her horrible diarrhea with my nasty bread, and is now claiming that I tried to poison her by giving them bread that has cinnamon in it. My husband has pressed that I did everything I needed to do to keep the bread separate, and that eating the cinnamon bread was 100% her choice. She, and now my husband's grandma are adamant that I shouldn't have brought cinnamon bread into the house at all and I should have just told my SILs no. I thought bringing it would be fine. I've been there plenty of times when SILs had cinnamon rolls on the stove, or snickerdoodle cookies in a jar. I assumed that she wouldn't even touch the container because as far as I had seen, she didn't touch the other stuff. Stories number 18. My girlfriend will be so mad if she found out, but I have to tell someone before I burst. So I have some memory problems, not like clinically but enough to affect daily life. This can understandably really pee off my girlfriend, like if she asked me to sort out her laundry and I forget about it for 6 hours, or if she asks me what I ate for lunch and I say I forgot to eat. Like she isn't actually mad at me for forgetting, but it can get really inconvenient, especially if it's about chores and I write so many notes and reminders for everything to try and do better. Sometimes my forgetfulness can get dangerous, like forgetting to turn the hob off. I've done it many times. Anyway, the story I wanted to say is the other day I went out by myself for a few hours, just to go for a walk. I live in a city, so I drove out a little bit and parked up outside a shop, in a pretty busy area. I took myself on a little walk and after an hour I started to make my way back to the car, but I realized I couldn't find my keys. I dug through my bag, all through my pockets, went back to everywhere I went and sat, asked people around me, everything. No sign of my keys. I thought, this is fully gonna put me in the shithouse, like losing all of my keys including my car key. I knew this would stress my GF out so much. So after all my searching, I started heading back to my car, keeping my eyes on the ground and hoping for any sign of the keys. When I eventually got back to the car, I realized it was unlocked. I thought, thank God, maybe I can hot-wire it somehow, as if I had any clue how to do that. But then I realized the keys were in the ignition and the car engine was still running. I got out of my car, forgetting to turn the engine off, forgetting my keys, and forgetting to lock it. I was so relieved and horrified with myself at the same time. Thank God I drove further out of the city, but it's not like I was completely isolated. There was still quite a lot of traffic around where I parked. It was for real a miracle that it wasn't stolen, plus I'm poor, so my insurance would have done nothing for me even if it was stolen. So that's my confession. I have a horrible time keeping secrets, but this is one story that I'm definitely keeping to myself. Unless I want my GF to have a heart attack, which wouldn't be ideal. I had to tell someone though. Stories number 19. My 25F girlfriend just cheated on me, 26M, on our anniversary. We had been dating for 2 years and our relationship was perfect. Conversation was easy and life just seemed easy whenever I was with her. We met at university and I was the nerd and she was the cheerleader. I felt like the luckiest guy in the world. As we were approaching our anniversary, we both had exams and lots of studying to do, so we didn't see each other as much. One night I asked if she wanted to do a group study session at the library and we both agreed. However, when I arrived she wasn't there. I messaged her and she said she was running late. About 30 minutes later she walks in with a bunch of friends from her course and she came over to me and we studied. The night before our anniversary she had a very important exam, so I didn't see her during the day at all as she wanted to focus on studying and do some last-minute prep. Her exam was late in the afternoon, so I patiently waited to hear from her to see how it went, knowing she'd smash it. She eventually called and said that it went terribly and that she was going to go to the bar with some of her friends from her course to blow off some steam. I gave her some space and told her to message me if she needed a lift or wanted to crash at my place. In the early hours of the following morning, our anniversary day, I had still not heard anything from her and stated to panic that she had blacked out somewhere or something potentially worse had happened. I drove over to the pub and the barman said that he saw her get in a taxi with a friend, male, and left. An hour or so passed and she messaged me saying she was crashing at a friend's place, she was okay and that she'd come over to my place for breakfast. When she arrived at mine in the morning she was crying, upset and tearful. I asked if everything was okay and she said, "No, there's something I must tell you," and essentially told me that she had slept over at her friend's place and slept with her friend from her course. I didn't know what to say. I just stared at her, tears filling my eyes and anger filling my heart. How could she do this to me? On our anniversary? Out of nowhere. She claimed she did it due to a mixture of being drunk and struggling on her exam. I didn't know what to do or say, so I politely asked her to leave and that I'll call her later and to give me some space whilst I work this out. What would you do? This is the only relationship I've ever had and I have terrible self-esteem. I've felt unloved romantically my whole life until I met her. She changed everything, but the only person who has ever loved me like this, cheated on me and I don't know why. I know people might say, it's easy, she cheated, break up with her, but there might not be anyone else out there for me. She was my first true love and I feel like there will not be anyone else for me besides her. She's perfect, the paragon of beauty, but she cheated. I'm not trying to get the sympathy vote here or anything like that, just a glimpse into my mental. Is there a way we can work through this? Would love to know your thoughts. Stories number 20. AITA for agreeing that my sister being fat makes her seem less desirable as a personal trainer. My 24F sister, 30F, is obese and works as a personal trainer. She has a degree in something to do with sports and nutrition, and she likes her job. She works at the same gym that I go to. She's obese because she doesn't work out much, and she eats a ton. Every family gathering we have she stuffs her face, and she likes to bake and is always posting about something she made and how great it was. I never really comment on her weight because I don't like to give my opinion when it's not asked for. I work out regularly. I go to the gym almost daily. The way my gym does it is if you are interested in personal training you can pick between one of their 3 personal trainers. New gym members get 1 free session. The trainers do not get paid for the 1 free consultation session that they do, but they do get paid for each visit they do after. They're basically like independent contractors. How much you make depends on how many clients you have, how many sessions you do, etc. One of the trainers is a former bodybuilder. He's popular for people getting into weightlifting. It helps that he's really nice and easygoing, and also good looking. The other personal trainer is a really nice and fit girl in her early 20s. She does a lot of circuit training, and I see her doing workouts with her clients a lot. And lastly is my sister. She struggles to get any clients. People are put off by her because of how heavy she is, regardless of what she knows. She's really passionate about her job, but yeah. She gets little to no clients, and isn't making enough to pay her bills. At a family dinner at our parents' house she was complaining about how she's going to have to move back into a cheaper place with roommates, and how she's so frustrated because the other 2 personal trainers make good money and get lots of clients. Our uncle, who describes himself as blunt, told my sister that it makes sense that they wouldn't want a big girl telling them how to work out. She got upset, and asked me to be honest with her and tell her if I think that's the main reason why she's struggling to get clients. I agreed with my uncle and said yeah, an in-shape personal trainer basically demonstrates that they know what they're doing, and they practice what they preach. Her being fat makes her look unqualified to most people. She got upset and left, and hasn't been answering anyone's calls and texts for the last few days, and I haven't seen her at the gym. AITA. I would have never said the truth if she didn't directly ask me for it. Stories number 21. Am I overreacting to my boyfriend's views on gay couples raising kids? Recently my boyfriend, 22M, and I, 21F, were out and saw a little kid with what looked like 2 mums. Super sweet moment and I was beaming the entire time. But after they walked off, my boyfriend said, it's actually really bad for that boy not to have a dad. That threw me off. He doubled down saying, kids with 2 mums or 2 dads need 2 opposite gender role models. I said what about aunties, uncles and grandparents, and he said, nope, that's not enough. Needs to be the parent. What? I asked, what he expects gay couples to do then, and he hit me with the I don't know. When I asked for an example what gay couples can't teach that same sex can, he said, you know, genitalia and masculinity and femininity stuff. Ever heard of books? School? The internet? I asked if he's against gay couples raising kids and he said no, he's fine with gay marriage, but he feels bad for kids without both a male and female role model. That made me feel really uneasy. It sounds like he thinks those kids are missing something important by default. I'm bi, and I know queer families who are and plan to be amazing parents. It sucks to think he might quietly judge them. He's never said anything like this before and he's always supported me and LGBTQ+ friends, so I'm confused. When I tried to keep the conversation going, he shut it down and said I wasn't listening. I told him I was offended, and he just said, that's how I feel, I'm sorry. Let's agree to disagree. Am I overreacting? Or is what he is saying fair and statistically right? Stories number 22. AITA for telling my nephew he is adopted. My brother, Billy, 41M, and his wife, Chloe, 39F, adopted their son, Ryan, 14M, when he was a newborn. I am 26F and using a throwaway. When my brother and Asiel adopted Ryan, they decided not to tell him that he was adopted until he was old enough to understand. It's important to understand that Ryan is a really smart kid, he's crazy smart. Last Friday, we all went round to my parents' house for dinner. This included, myself, Billy, Chloe, Ryan, my older sister Ella, 32F, and our parents. After dinner, we all kind of separated into different rooms to chill. My nephew and I are both into Minecraft and he was showing me his new world on his iPad. We were just chatting about the normal stuff when he asked, so why do you think my parents adopted me, very, very casually. I was caught very off guard because my brother and Asiel hadn't mentioned anything about telling him. I didn't know what the heck to say and how they'd explained it to him, so all I said was, this is something I'd speak to your parents about, mate, verbatim. He nodded and said, yeah, and changed the subject. Not long after, my brother and Chloe came in and said they were heading home. I didn't want to mention it in front of Ryan, so I thought I'd shoot them a message once they're home. When they left, I mentioned it to my parents and Ella, who were also shocked that Chloe and Billy hadn't mentioned telling him to them either, so none of us were prepared to answer any questions he may have. I messaged Billy and in under 1 minute Chloe was on the phone swearing and screeching like a banshee. It turns out that Ryan had not been told that he was adopted, and by saying, "You should speak to your parents about this," I actually did tell him, and I should have said that he's not adopted. I'm not sure why Ryan asked, but he's a smart kid. He must have had some kind of inkling, which is why instead of asking directly, he asked my opinion on why. That was Friday evening. Chloe went insane down the phone. I could hear Billy in the background saying that I was out of line and I'm not a parent, so I don't understand the gravity of what I've done, etc. It's now Wednesday evening and my family is still divided and not communicating properly. My parents understand my point of view, but our sister, Ella, is saying that I'm an idiot that was manipulated by a teenager and has called me a complete asshole for stepping on his parents' toes. I've had Chloe's family message me over the weekend calling all sorts of names. I've been told I'm now allowed to their anniversary party next month, etc. All this to say, it's a complete and utter shit show. AITA in this scenario. I understand that I should have talked to his parents before I gave him any kind of answer, but it was in the moment. Does anyone have any advice on what to do now, because right now it looks like they're going no contact with me. Stories number 22. AITA for not wanting my daughter in my life after she cut me off for 6 years. My late husband passed away when my daughter Nellie was just 5 years old, and I had her when I was 17. I remarried Benz when Nellie was 10. For the first 5 years of our relationship, I focused on Nellie and continued to prioritize her well-being throughout my marriage to Benz. While my husband expressed a desire for children soon after we married, I made it clear that I preferred to wait until Nellie turned 18. I wanted to ensure that she never felt abandoned or replaced. For 13 years, Benz respected my decision and, despite being child-free, never voiced any complaints. He has always been supportive of my relationship with Nellie, understanding that he could never replace her father. Once Nellie turned 18, our family dynamic remained strong, and we all supported her when she met her fiancé. My late husband's parents took Benz in and respected him a lot for not wanting to replace their son. At my daughter's wedding she even gave a speech to my husband about how amazing he was and supportive and how she loved him. They acknowledged Benz in a heartfelt speech. However, after the wedding, Nellie unexpectedly cut off contact with us. We were so shocked, no explanation as to why, just silently after she told us she never wanted to see us again. Though we were hurt, I asked my late husband's parents to continue supporting her without pressuring her to reconnect with us. Nellie went on to have 2 children but did not reach out to us, and despite our attempts to contact her during the first 2 years of her no-contact decision, we eventually stopped and we dropped contact from our end too. During that time, Benz and I welcomed a 4-year-old daughter and a 3-year-old son into our family. Benz has never been happier, as he always wanted biological children, even though he loved raising my daughter. I got a message last Sunday from a number stating that my daughter might reach out in the coming days and said that I did not know it was a man then, hopes he'll be smart enough not to let her back in. Then, I received a call from my late husband's in-laws, who informed me that Nellie's husband had cheated on her and was leaving her for his mistress and she was all alone. I was shocked by the news, as he had seemed devoted to her. I asked my ex-mother-in-law to convey my support to Nellie during this difficult time. I'm sure she then told my daughter this because my daughter reached out after my ex-mill gave her my number, and the first thing she said was, "Mom, I don't know how I'm going to take care of my kids alone," not a hello, or even a, "sorry for cutting you off, etc." I asked her what she wanted me to do about that and she told me that she needed financial help. LOL, sorry, but I actually laughed, and she then went on to say that my grandkids had just lost their father and I could not be bothered by them. I got so fucking mad when she said that, and I told her very calmly that she cut me off for no reason and asked her why she cut me off. She couldn't even give me a reason. I told her that I don't normally discourage people from cutting off their parents if they absolutely need to, and told her that the same goes for parents. I told her that it can't just be okay for one set of adults in the family to cut the other off and the other can't. In the end, before I told her that her kids are not my responsibility, I don't know her kids and I have no emotional ties to them because of her. It's sad, but the way I feel about my grandkids is the way you would feel caring about a random celebrity kids, and that's so fucking sad. I ended up telling her to please not contact me and that she chose to go NC. I told her that I had a life and I was not willing to bring her into that life, near her siblings, only for her to cut me off and her kid siblings off whenever she felt like it, and kindly told her to not call back. AITA for not giving her money and not helping her out financially after she cut me off for 6 years. Stories number 23. I know I'm not family anymore, but give me the details for your destination wedding. Welcome to my family drama. So, I'm getting married in April and having a destination wedding in Cyprus. Because we have family all over the world and some have jobs where they need to close dates like a year in advance, we sent out save the dates as soon as we closed the venue, back in May. One of the people I sent a save the date to is my stepbrother's wife. Then, they started divorce proceedings this summer. I've never liked her, she's quite a nasty person, and she only ever speaks to me when she needs something. When I sent out the actual invites, I sent them with the names of all the invitees. So, I sent my stepbrother an invite with his name, his stepdaughter, her daughter from a previous marriage who I see as a niece, and their child together. Her name was not on the invite. I knew this meant that it was very likely her children could not come, since they would have to leave the country and she could prevent that, which I completely understand and is totally in her right. I understood that when I sent the invite. My stepbrother told me straight away that he and the kids would likely not be able to make it, but he'd let me know if things changed by the time he needed to RSVP. So, that was 2 months ago. Haven't spoken to his wife since long before the divorce proceedings started. Today she texts me, translated, "Hi, the Iron Mountie, when's the wedding and what hotel are you staying at? Send me so I can check options to come." I'm thinking to myself, girl, you aren't family and this is a small destination wedding. What are you thinking? So, I called my dad and stepmom to consult how to respond to her. Apparently my stepmom asked if she could take her son, since my stepbrother can't go, and she wanted him to come to the wedding and see my nibblings from North America. So, Step-SAL started declaring plans already from that request, thinking it entitled her to an invite. I told my stepmom, I can understand her wanting to come if her ex-husband is coming with the kids. But what right does she think she has to come without my actual brother? Stepmom and dad agreed she's delusional and helped me verbalize a response to her. So, I sent to her, "Hi, Step-SAL. I sent the invite with all the details to stepbrother. You can arrange with him." I figured, okay, she'll understand that the initial invite was to her as my brother's wife. As in it only applies to them as a unit. But no, the Iron Mountie, I don't know if you know we aren't together in divorce proceedings. My save the date, she actually said, invite, but she never got an invite, just a save the date, was deleted, hence I requested the details from you. So, this woman, who I have near zero relationship with, who is no longer even speaking to my brother, thinks that she's still invited to my wedding. I spoke with my stepmom again, as she's always been the only one who could match her crazy. She apologized for opening this can of worms and told me she would speak to her and explain the situation. I just can't imagine what la-la land she's living in that she thinks if she isn't even speaking to my brother, and he can't even come to my wedding, that she can. So, I had a couple people reaching out for an update, but honestly, it wound up being pretty uninteresting. First off, I'm back home from Cyprus and I'm now a wife. Though, in my husband's words, it feels the same, but with a ring, lol. Anyways, I don't know if you guys remember, but you know how I mentioned my ex-SIL was a neglectful parent and would dump her kids on my parents a lot? Well, she was glad for the excuse to not have her son for 4 days and agreed to let my parents take him to my wedding. Her daughter is with her father, so I'm sure she was glad to not have to worry about those pesky tasks like feeding and nurturing her children. That's it. She never contacted me after. Didn't congratulate me, didn't cuss me out, nothing. Stories number 24. I CC'd my ex's boss telling him my ex exposed sensitive info to others etc., after my ex said I was never going to be successful without him and sabotaging my sales. This weekend, I posted some of my artwork for sale on Nextdoor, trying to get commissions to help pay for medical expenses. Everything was going well, I was getting lots of responses and interest. However, most people would disappear after the first exchange of messages, which is normal when selling online. Saturday night, I opened my email and saw a message from my ex, whom I'll call John. He saw my post and was making fun of me, saying I would have more success if I stood on the street and asked for money, and that I would never be successful without him. I ignored the email and deleted it, trying not to let it affect me. I messaged some of the interested people to follow up, and one person replied that they were no longer interested because they received a message from someone saying I wasn't a good artist and that I was crazy, so they shouldn't spend any money on me. I'm not sure how many others he might have contacted. I put 2 and 2 together, and I know it was my ex. For context, I dated him for almost 2 years. He was the biggest narcissist and came from an affluent background. His dad owned several pawn shops, so he grew up very well off. Like most relationships, ours started out well, but then it changed. He became mentally and verbally abusive. Due to all the abuse, my health declined, and he would tell me that all my illnesses were just in my mind. He'd argue with me every time I went to the doctor. He was extremely controlling. I wasn't allowed to work or have friends. He was always jealous. The day I decided to leave, he shoved me really hard into the wall because I didn't want to give him my phone. He's 6 feet 3 inches, and I'm 5 feet 3 inches, so you can imagine the power difference. I left him 6 months ago. Since then, he's tried reaching out, begging me to get back together. I've been couch surfing at friends' places for a few months, but recently I moved in with my best friend and her parents. They have a little suite that they're letting me rent out. The problem is, it's in the same area as my ex. I barely go out, so I doubt I'll run into him by chance, but now he knows I'm in the area. Back to this weekend, I'm so angry because I'm doing my best to seek medical help and survive, and he's here sabotaging all the efforts I'm making to force me to go back with him. I'm not proud of what I did because I know it was impulsive, but since he emailed me from his work email, and I know who his boss is, I used to do my ex's work, I CC'd his boss, attaching his previous email and telling the boss if he knew that John shares sensitive company information with friends and that I did XYZ work John was supposed to do. Since then, I've received a few calls from no caller ID from my ex. He's left voicemails saying that I need to deny the email, or he'll get fired, blah blah. Edit, for those asking how did he know who to message. On Nextdoor people can like, heart or whatever just like Facebook and people can comment just like Facebook. I had over 30 people comment that they were interested and wanted details in the comments. Some private messaged me but the minority reached out in the comments. Stories number 25. AITA exposing my wife's cheating and son born out of wedlock with other man. My wife and I am in divorce process and it take ages to get it. She didn't work. So I have to pay heavy alimony. She has a 3-year-old son and son clearly don't look like me. I found her chats with other man. Got private DNA tested and he isn't my son. It was hard punch to gut. But I am forced to pay for kid forever till he passes college. 50% of my salary goes to her and child support. I loved him, but this betrayal was affecting my mental health and I cut them off both. I am paying maintenance to both. I was cheated. I was being painted as bad person everywhere. So I posted it on my social media with report. It went viral and she is getting shamed by masses. If I can't save myself financially, I will make sure her reputation goes down the gutter. If I am going to be ruined financially and mentally, I will ruin her reputation and future options. Her family and she is begging me to take it down. But I won't. They are also begging me to forgive her. No forgiveness from me after she filed fake cases on me. Including DV when I never raised a hand on her. My sister is in Dubai and she filed case on her. My dad who got liver transplant. She filed DV cases on him and my mother when they were in hospital. So yeah, she is horrible human and misused the law which is made for actual victims. They are saying I raised the kid. But I can't see him as my child anymore and my anger takes it over. If he is near me, I know I will be forced to pay for him for next 2 decades which makes me bitter. Because in our country, even if wife cheats and have kid with other man, husband is automatically assumed as legal father. Luckily before all this, I transferred my assets to my mom's name and will make sure she and her son doesn't get anything. If I die after divorce is over, I will never marry and adopt orphans. And raise them. But not him. Because here I shall have the option to adopt. Edit. I have clearly said it is law. People keep asking why can't I hire a lawyer and get it changed. I have clearly explained you. It is by law and no lawyer can get it changed. Stories number 26. Someone I specifically didn't invite to my wedding RSVP'd to it. Personal drama. So here is an awkward story. I have this friend who I've been trying to pull back from for several years at this point. When I was not doing well mentally like 2 to 3 years ago and stuff, she would want to hang out and I would always feel like total fucking shit after spending time with her because she would like manic talk at me for hours and not let me leave. Like I'd make motions to leave us meeting up for dinner and she would talk and make it impossible. And she was very very clingy. First trimester when I was sick all the time, she would freak out if I didn't text back within a few hours asking if I was mad at her and all this and it was just draining. It confirmed my decision to pull back fully over the past few months. Just sending a few texts in response and not saying much. If I had a convo about it, she would probably break down sobbing and then make me feel bad for protecting my peace so I've done a slow fade. Anyway. I didn't send her a wedding invite because I knew she would try to monopolize my time all night long and not let me talk to other people. Well. Somehow she must have fucking found our website because last night, I got a notification that she RSVP'd. Which like I never invited her so how weird is that? I don't go around RSVPing to weddings I wasn't invited to ha. Thankfully she RSVP'd no but she had sent me a text a few days ago and I was gonna respond finally but now if I do, I know this is going to come up. Low-key shocked she hasn't texted me about not getting an invite. This person is in her mid-40s by the way, Stories number 27. I found a piece of paper in my dad's bathroom. What my mom's been worrying about is true. I'm 17, and my parents are legally separated but not divorced yet. It's basically the same thing but without a few extra steps legally, and they are still considered married in the church. We are religious, so it has been a rough time proceeding with things without community backlash. My dad's very successful and never the guy you would think to be doing things wrong at home. They've yelled at each other, fought, not physically, and had a lot of conflict and disagreement on how to handle COVID. My family has a genetic disease that can make us more susceptible to other illnesses, and we take oral steroids that could make it worse too. My brother was almost not allowed to return to the house after going out with friends and walking into somebody else's house. Regardless, a few days ago, I was worried about the state with my dad. My mom has been paranoid that he somehow got control of the lights of her new house after getting an app that can turn them on and off remotely. She also thinks he's stalking her, has some of her passwords, and can see anything me and my siblings post too. I've always kind of dismissed her until I found the paper. The paper is a small diagram, a family tree, with a small box around it. It has her parents, then my mom's sisters, then me and my siblings underneath my mom in the box. To the side, it says 99% of all conversation with an arrow to the box. There's then a list of friends, listing out their full names, and then a note to the side for one of them won't help. Underneath that is another note that my mom works remote. I don't know what to do. Whenever I call my dad out or have an issue with him previously, saying he's gaslighting or that something is manipulative, he says I'm icing my mom's words. He thinks my mom is trying to alienate us from him, but then I find stuff like this and her paranoia makes sense. Should I tell her I found it? Should I confront my dad? I got a picture of the paper and didn't take it, so he doesn't know I saw it, and I made a new ACC so he can't stalk my socials. I'm on someone else's Wi-Fi writing this too. Edit. A lot of the comments are asking about the light mention. When my mom built the house, she got a home security system and a smart control app that lets her turn on and off the lights and arm and disarm the door sensors. When my mom and sister were in the kitchen, the lights turned off by themselves while they were talking to each other. It was one of those ones that slowly dim before shutting completely off too. I'm glad I wasn't there. Other things my mom found odd. He found out about my aunt being pregnant, my mom's sister, but she had never told him. Most of my mom's side of the family is no contact with him. When they were first separated, they used to switch in and out of the house, which is now my dad's house, and he found out that my mom was building a new house, found where and who she worked for, new remote job, and found the address of the new house. My mom, and I have also experienced this too, sometimes log onto our laptops or phones and then find our emails have been randomly signed out of without us signing them out. I have multiple emails and it was my main that got signed out of at least twice. I only noticed when I realized I was getting less college spam than normal. We've both since changed our passwords. When my dad was on a Zoom call with a friend or coworker, or both, the same time that I got a push notif on Discord from my phone, I heard the Discord ping coming from my dad's laptop. I don't know if two full-time, both having families, middle-aged men are messaging on Discord. All of these are circumstantial but are just odd. Stories number 28. AITA for telling my dad's wife she won't be grandma to any future kids of mine. My dad, 62, is married to Noelle, 60. They met when I, 24F, was 16 and got married when I was 21. Noelle and I don't get along and we won't ever get along. The reason we don't get along is she's so aggressive for no reason. Noelle fought with my grandparents the first time she joined in on a family vacation, which was a year after her and dad started dating. The fight was over where we were going to eat. Noelle didn't want to eat at the place that came with the vacation package my grandparents paid for. Then she got angry when most of us wanted to eat there and wouldn't go where she wanted, and she took it out on my grandparents. Nobody tried to stop her and dad from eating elsewhere, but most of us didn't want to spend a fortune going to a place outside the package we got. She didn't want to do any of the paid-for tours and got mad that my grandparents didn't cancel them all. When Noelle first moved in with dad, she started a weird fight with our neighbor over the neighbor's dog watching her. The neighbor said the dog was relaxing, but Noelle didn't buy it, and she was so aggressive even when she asked the neighbor to make the dog stop looking that first time. Noelle still calls that neighbor a bitch and a cunt years later. We fought over my graduation. I didn't want her there, but dad did. I gave in for him. She demanded me to invite her whole family and didn't even ask. She demanded right away. When I said no, she stayed mad about it for weeks and argued with a bunch of people that whole time. Even at work she got a warning for the attitude she gave. She picked a fight with my aunt at dad's 60th birthday dinner. My aunt bought dad an extra dessert and it offended Noelle. She accused my aunt of trying to steal the limelight and asked her why she was so entitled, which I still don't get how buying your brother a dessert on his birthday makes you entitled, but anyway. My aunt ignored her. But the aggression off Noel was through the roof. My dad knows I don't like Noel. He doesn't push. We meet up for lunch, dinner, etc. He'll visit me and I visit him when Noel's at work or visiting with someone. He knows that when I get married someday Noel won't be anything more than his +1 and he should not expect her to be thanked for anything. He also knows there is no way I'll encourage my future kids to call her grandma. He's accepted it. I've accepted I don't have as close of a relationship with Dad as before because he's married to Noel and I want as little contact and exposure to her aggressive nature as possible. We were all together for my uncle's birthday on Saturday and Noel started fighting with him. She didn't like something he said about her favorite restaurant and just got so aggressive over it. My uncle rolled his eyes at her and ignored her, but she wouldn't let it fucking go. Then he suggested she might need to be medicated because she gets aggressive a lot and he compared her to an angry yapping dog. I laughed because I couldn't have said it better myself. She told me that I should be defending her, not laughing. She asked what I'd tell my future kids one day when they wondered why I let people speak to grandma that way. That's when I told her she won't be grandma to any future kids of mine. I told her she'll be grandpa's wife they never see. She blew a fuse and was removed. My dad stayed and apologized for her blowing up at the party. She's decided we need to talk about what I said, but I ignore her. Every time she leaves a voice message or sends a text she tells me I don't have the right to deny her and my future kids a relationship and saying I'll be an awful mother. Stories number 29. AITA for not bringing anything to my friend's potluck after she told me not to. One of my close friends hosted a dinner at her place last weekend. She called it a potluck and sent a group text saying we should each bring a little something, drinks, snacks, whatever. It wasn't anything fancy, just casual. I asked her what I should bring and mentioned I'd be coming straight from work and might be a little rushed. She replied that I didn't need to worry about it, she had plenty of food and just wanted me to come, so I didn't bring anything. I showed up, said hi to everyone, and honestly, the night was going fine. People brought stuff, a salad, some cupcakes, a couple bottles of wine. I was planning to just help clean up or do dishes since I didn't bring anything, and I figured she meant what she said. But later on, while people were complimenting the food, she made this offhand comment like, well, not everyone contributed, but we're still glad she showed up. Everyone laughed, and it didn't seem super serious, but I felt my face get hot. I didn't know how to respond. I stayed polite and tried not to act weird about it, but I felt uncomfortable the rest of the night. On the way home, I kept thinking about it. I get that maybe she was a little annoyed, but she literally told me not to bring anything. And now I feel like she put me on blast in front of people for something I didn't even do wrong. I haven't said anything to her yet because it feels small and I don't want to be dramatic, but I also can't shake the feeling that it wasn't fair. Stories number 30. Yesterday my fiancé pulled me by my hair in the grocery store. Now I'm worried and am thinking of leaving him before it's too late. When I first met my fiancé he was an alcoholic and in the process of quitting. We got in some arguments and he showed me some abusive traits. I should have just left then. But once he stopped drinking he became an amazing boyfriend and he blamed the abuse on alcohol. Which included grabbing my phone and pinning me down. He would accuse me of things I wasn't doing. Would get mad at my clothes I was wearing. And he would push me around. I told him he needed to stop drinking and he did. And the abuse stopped and our relationship was amazing for 2 years. There wasn't any signs of abuse. He was loving and a great person. So we decided to get engaged. Well, we literally just went to the store last week and he bought a ring. And now things have gotten weird. Yesterday we went to the grocery store and he told me to zip up my jumpsuit so no cleavage was showing. This pissed me off because I didn't look slutty at all. And I was mad at him for trying to control me. And I was arguing with him. And he kept telling me to just do what he says. Then I turned away from him and he forcefully grabbed me by my hair to pull me towards him and told me to zip it up. It hurt my head and I was so embarrassed he did this. I literally looked like an abuse victim in the grocery store. Well, I was also shocked because this hasn't happened. And he is also not drinking. Which he hasn't in 2 years. I'm sure he wasn't drinking yesterday because when he was an alcoholic I could smell it on his breath. Now I'm wondering if he was pretending to be a good guy this whole time to try to hook me in. And now that we're engaged he's going to abuse me because he thinks he's trapped me. Last night I tried talking to him about it. And I was upset so I started ignoring him. Then he proceeded to try to subtly push me off the bed. Then this made me even more angry. This morning I woke up and he apologized, then I said don't push me around. And he said I pulled your hair. Not realizing I was also mad for him doing that to me in the bed. Then he left for work angry at me. Like WTF did I do? Now I have no idea what to do. I'm confused. Stories number 31. In 2007, I stole a PS3 from work, which they paid for, with receipts, and it was damn near the perfect crime. In 2007 my work paid for my PS3 without them knowing. I was working at large video hire franchise store here in Australia around that time. We sold consoles, something not many people knew. I pre-ordered a new PS3 through work with the ability to pay off my pre-order like a lay-by. At our store, new releases were $6.50, but as usual, we had a multitude of coupons people used, including one free new release, which I easily memorized the coupon code. After working there a year, I realized the company did not track the coupons at all. So, every shift, I would charge a customer $6.50 for their new release like normal. They had no coupon, and if they were paying cash, quickly and discreetly put the coupon code in on the system without the customer seeing as a free new release. Took payment, till now up $6.50 when it shouldn't be. I'd do this 4 to 5 times a shift, spacing out when I did this and tracking how much I was up in the till. At close, on my own, I'd take out how much I was artificially up in the till and pay that off my PS3 pre-order. End of the night, tills balanced perfectly and no one batted an eyelid. My PS3 was $999.95 and work paid for the whole thing. I might have even got a new game 2 and second controller with the pre-order, I can't remember. It's both the most ingenious and wrong thing I've ever done in my life. And I fight the constant battle of guilt versus pride in what I did. Stories number 32. AITA for telling my 17-year-old she needs to go to her volunteer job and not, no call no show, for a third time. My daughter is 17. She is good in school and working hard. She has no chores or rules really. The one rule we have is that she leave her location on her phone if she's going out. In our country, it's legal for her to drink and so she goes to bars. She doesn't have a curfew, she just has to keep us updated that she's safe. These rules work for her because she is normally responsible. We let her throw a house party recently where it was supposed to be 25 people and at least 100 kids came. We cleaned up the mess. She signed up for a volunteer job to get into college and it's every Sunday for 3 hours. She has been doing this since January and already missed 2 weeks. One due to illness, one due to illness from a hangover. She also has left a half hour early every week since she started. This Sunday she overslept but there was still time to get in and she said she wasn't going. I told her she has to go. She made a commitment and that if she doesn't want to do it she should give her 2 weeks notice. She said I'm controlling her. I asked how. She said asking for examples is a form of gaslighting. She called me a C-word multiple times. She can't give me any other examples of me being controlling but insists I am. She told me she will never let me see my grandchildren when she has them. She said I've been yelling at her for 6 months and been rude. My husband was in disbelief because he's been here and I haven't yelled at her at all. She then tried to storm out without her phone and I told her she needed to go to her room and she said that was abuse. She can talk very fast and confuses my husband sometimes, so now I don't know if I'm the crazy one. I know maybe we should have more rules, but I had very controlling abusive parents, so I have tried to be much more permissive. Her side of the story is that another girl who trained her in volunteering said no one cares if you turn up or not and no one cares if you leave early. But I pointed out the emails from the volunteer staff say it does matter that they are there and attend. She said those emails are none of my business. Which maybe they're not, but she asked me to get her the volunteer work so they come to my email. Stories number 33. My boyfriend lost my dog, then gets a dog of the same breed for himself. My 34F boyfriend, 33M, took my 12-year-old Chihuahua outside with him while he was working in the front yard and my dog ran away. He claims that he forgot he had outside with him, therefore he forgot to watch him. He didn't have him on a leash and he wasn't wearing his collar. We never found my dog and animal control shelters never received him either. He likely died alone and hungry. I was heartbroken and have wanted another Chihuahua since that all happened in 2021, but I never got one. I have talked to my boyfriend numerous times about wanting to have one again, though, so he's well aware and he knows they're my favorite breed and that my Chihuahua was my favorite dog I've ever owned. Fast forward to yesterday, I dozed off after work and was woken up by my boyfriend standing at the end of my bed holding the cutest Chihuahua puppy. He tells me his customer had him and was trying to rehome him, so he worked out a deal with the customer and stayed late to complete a side job for him, and in return the customer gave him the puppy. I was immediately in love and I assumed that the dog was for me, since I love Chihuahuas, want one badly, and the one I had, ran away because my boyfriend basically let him. I said something about getting the puppy chip so that if God forbid he ever got out, animal control could scan his chip and call me. My boyfriend then tells me the puppy isn't for me, it's ultimately his dog. He says that he got it for both of us, but if we break up he moves out, the dog goes with him and I'm once again left with no dog. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. We don't have the most stable of relationships and have separated several times over the years, so to just say, don't worry about it cause we're not going to break up, is not realistic. For example, my boyfriend literally just told me last week while he was out of town that he was moving out when he got home. Obviously he didn't end up doing that, but that's the uncertainty of our relationship day to day. So, I got upset and told him it was screwed up for him to surprise me with this Chihuahua puppy only to tell me at the end of the day, he's not mine, and expect me to get close with and love this dog just for it to be taken away from me any given day. He left and went and stayed at a friend's house last night and says I'm being a selfish bitch. He lacks the ability to see anything from any perspective other than his own and truly doesn't understand how fucked up the whole situation is. Am I overreacting? Stories number 34. I called my sister, not a smart person, for refusing to get vaccinated before meeting my newborn. Hi all, I'm 29F and currently 34 weeks pregnant. I just left my OB appointment for a routine check and to get the TDAP vaccine for whooping cough. My doctor and pharmacist told me that anyone who plans to hold the baby or spend a significant amount of time around the baby should also get the TDAP shot, as whooping cough is often asymptomatic. I called my family to let them know, and my sister called me afterward to discuss it and basically plead her case for why she won't get it. For background, my sister, 23F, lives at home with my parents and the three of them are basically anti-vaxxers since COVID. My parents are 100% repulsed by vaccines, despite my dad being hospitalized for COVID once, and my sister claims that some vaccines are okay, but when push comes to shove she refuses all vaccines, citing that people still got COVID after the vaccine, and I don't want to get sick after a vaccine because the vaccine gives you the sickness. If you ask me, she's also scared of needles. My sister only works 3 days a week, and the plan was that starting 1 month after the baby is born, she would care for him 2 days a week so I can work on those days. So her getting any recommended vaccine, in my view, is extremely important. I tried to explain to her that 1, vaccines don't necessarily prevent spread, they prevent the worst symptoms, and 2, live vaccines contain a tiny amount of the virus but not enough to actually give you the full-blown illness. She stood firm on, no. I'm not doing it. At this point I got triggered because the whole anti-vax rhetoric is so anti-scientific and self-absorbed. I told her, do you think you know better than a doctor and a pharmacist who works with babies every day and went to school for 8+ years? To which she replied, I know that our dad didn't get the COVID vaccine and he's fine. That comment was so unrelated and nonsensical to me that I said, the reason I'm getting heated is because you and our parents are so full of yourselves that you think that you're smarter than the thousands of doctors who recommend these medications, and that makes you not a smart person, and then she hung up. I then got a call from my mom, anti-vax, who said my sister was crying and, you can't force someone to do something with their body, and I said, I know, but there will be consequences to her choice and she'll regret her choice. I think her choice is stupid. Stories number 35. Neighbors think their kids are entitled to break into my yard. For context, I have 4 chickens who live in a cozy coop at the end of my back garden. One of them, Whiskey, has survived a fox attack, is 8 years old and still laying eggs, and we affectionately refer to her as our guard chicken or the snitch because she will scream for us if any intruders, usually squirrels, enter our yard or any of the other chickens escape. It was a nice, sunny Sunday morning and I had my friends over for brunch when I hear Whiskey screaming and look out the window to see the neighbor's kid crouched down next to my chicken coop. Me, hey, what are you doing? Kid, I'm just getting my ball back. Holding 2 balls. Me, wah, get out of my garden. Kid, that's not very nice. Me, well it's not very nice to break into other people's gardens. At this point he climbs back into his garden through a gap in the fence at the very back of the garden. Meanwhile I've gone to knock on their front door to speak to their parents, assuming that they must not know this was happening. Me, hi, did you know your son was breaking into our garden? Dad, immediately yelling, is it okay, what you said to my son? Me, what, telling him he can't break into our property? Dad, he's just a kid, it's okay for him to do that. Me, no, legally he can't. I don't want random kids messing about with my chickens. Dad, you threatened my kid. You swore at him. Me, I never threatened him, I just wanted him off my property. Dad, it's fine for kids to do that. You know what, I don't have to listen to this, goes to slam the door in my face but stops when I step forward onto their doorstep, but not into their house. Me, how would you like it if I broke into your garden? Dad, they're kids, it's okay. You're threatening them. Call the police. At this point my unfortunate tendency to cry when I'm angry started to get the better of me, so I stepped back and yelled that I wanted to speak to the police actually because I had done nothing wrong, then went back into my house. I did end up calling the non-emergency line, and the operator I spoke to reassured me that they were definitely not entitled to break in, kids or not, and even if I swore at them, I was unsure because I do swear a lot in general without even noticing, but my friends who witnessed the whole thing assured me that I hadn't broken any laws. So now we have to fix the fence gap and hope that the unhinged adult man living next door who thinks it's perfectly fine to wander onto people's yard without permission doesn't decide to do that again himself. I'm starting to doubt that this was the first time the kids had broken in, as Whiskey had been screaming all day Saturday, much more than she would for a squirrel or bird, but I couldn't see anything when I checked. Stories number 36. My cheesiest move to break the touch barrier. So on first dates, I always ask the woman out for coffee or drinks. If the vibes are there, I ask her if she wants to grab a bite, and I always suggest Chinese or Japanese food. Most of the time, they go along with my idea. During this, I ask her if she knows how to use chopsticks. Most of the time they say no. I ask them if they want me to teach them and they say yes. I ask for their hand and pretty much just play with their hand and fingers trying to get the chopsticks in the right position. I always confess this was just an excuse to touch their hand, and every time I got a positive response. I either get, "I know, that's why I let you do it," or they just smile and make a joke about it. Every time I did this, the conversation turns more flirty and fun, and I've always snagged at a second date, and at least a kiss sometime later. If this had anything to do with it, but it certainly never seemed to hurt. I actually did this last weekend. Stories number 37. AITA for telling my best friend she can't do her adult content at my house. My best friend was recently kicked out of where she was living and asked if she could stay with me in this emergency situation as she had nowhere else to go right now. I instantly said yes. We moved all her furniture and bigger things into a storage unit, and she brought a few suitcases to my place. I'll be honest, at the time, I really wasn't thinking about her work situation. I knew her job was that's what she did for a living, that's how she made her money, and I've never judged her for it. However, the following day after the evening she moved in, I took my daughter to school and came home to do my own work. I work from home. She wandered into my kitchen at like 12 p.m. and told me she had some videos she needed to make. I instantly knew what she meant by that, and I said, "Well, I mean, are you going to be quiet during these videos?" She laughed and said, "No, but you're my best friend so I don't mind if you hear me," to which I responded with, "I mind if I hear you. I'm not gonna lie, I don't feel comfortable you making those videos in my house. You can take your pics and stuff though, granted you don't do it while my daughter is home." She got a little snippy and upset with me and told me that making custom request videos was how she made the majority of her money, and she had a bunch of requests that she needed to do. I told her again that I don't feel comfortable with that specifically. She told me to wear headphones. I said, "I do wear headphones because I have pretty much constant work calls through my day, and I can't have you moaning and screaming in the background." I ended up saying, "If you can be quiet, then you can while I'm here working, and again, as long as you're not doing it when my daughter is home." She told me she won't be able to be quiet, because that's not what her clients, want. So I told her, "I'm sorry, girl, no. I can't have that." She's now a little pissed off at me, because I'm basically stopping her from making decent coin while she'll be staying with me until she finds a new place, and that she has nowhere else to go to do it. I feel bad, but I think my feelings and reasons are justified. AITA. Edit. Just to answer the majority who have mentioned hotel room, I answered a few. She claims a hotel would kick her out, and that she really didn't think I would care about her doing it here as long as she didn't do it when my child is here. I genuinely thought because she does make decent money from it and had money in the bank, she just wouldn't do it in the short-term time that she'll be here at my place. She is actively looking for a new place to rent. She's not going to be here long-term. It was just an emergency situation, and she knew I had a spare room in my house she could stay in, so I said yes because she's a very good, close friend of mine. I'd like to point out that outside of her content, she dresses modestly and doesn't act like a whore. So I don't mind her being around my child. She's known my daughter since I had my daughter 7 years ago. My daughter is not exposed to anything inappropriate around her. Just wanted to mention that. Another point to mention, this isn't a case of her bringing people here to fuck them. She's just making videos for them, but those videos include a variety of things where she will obviously not be quiet. And I just don't want to have to hear it TBH, especially not while I'm on work calls. Also, the reason she was kicked out of her last place was actually nothing to do with her sex work, but it's also not relevant to my post, so I won't be discussing it here. If men could stop sliding into my DMs asking for her link, that would be great. LMAO. I don't know her fucking link, I'm her friend, not a subscriber. Update. She finally listened and has booked a hotel room for the night. Just so she can go and get these requests that she has built up done. She's let her subs and clients know that's not going to be taking requests until she's settled in a new place. She's also just told me that she thinks she found a new place to rent. And she's now starting the process of that. Problem solved. Stories number 38. Was I wrong to tell my flatmate to go back to her country if she hates living here so much? Social life. My flatmate is from France, and while she was fine for the first few months, she has really started to annoy me by consistently trash-talking the UK, saying stuff like how shitty everything is compared to France, and how hard uni is here compared to France, and how she hates the people here. Now, I'm not exactly a patriot, but having moved to the UK at the age of 10 from a third world country, I'm quite grateful for the opportunities I've gotten that I wouldn't have even dreamed of getting in my home country. That's not to say everything here is perfect, but it's pretty good. So you can see why I get annoyed when she keeps on harping on about this. And the worst part is, she does it completely unprompted and for the weirdest reasons. For example, we are having a bit of a silverfish problem and I called the accommodation people a few days ago to sort it out, and when they didn't instantly sort the problem out of nowhere, she sneakily said that this would never happen in France and that she can't believe how much of a third world country the UK is. At this point I had enough and told her to shut up and go back to her country if she hated it this much. This really ticked her off, and incredibly, she reported me to the accommodation people for discrimination. Luckily I was let off the hook, but this really pissed me off. But regardless, was I wrong? Stories number 39. Being single is so expensive. Rant. I'm a 30F, single, and no one tells you how incredibly expensive it is. I'm referring to group trips, dinners, weddings, etc. Going on trips and sharing accommodation, I have to pay full amount while they split. They can afford fancy dinners at Michelin star restaurants because they have two incomes and I'm struggling to pay for my bus fare home. Even heard people brag about just taking the credit card out of their partner's wallets. Weddings, oh my god, between the hens, the wedding itself, spending money, again accommodation, the present which is now an expected 200 cash gift, again something that gets split but I have to pay full price. On top a dress, makeup, hair. And there's always a day too. I love my friends and want to be there in those moments and do things together, but the financial aspect is debilitating. Trying to save for a house on a single salary with all of these expenses. I'm even working a second job and I'm struggling. This is also minus any of my own personal expenses and I've even had to move home. It's so frustrating and sometimes anxiety-inducing to the point I don't enjoy these things because I'm panicking if I can pay my phone bill. I think it's also when that aspect is not considered, that this person can't afford this because we have two incomes, is what is annoying. But then there's the internal battle of not wanting to be the poor one, or the one holding people back, so you just don't go. I have missed out on so much because of it. I just need to know others feel the same and are in a similar position as I am. Update. I didn't expect my little vent have so much attention. I think may need to clear up a few things I have already mentioned in comments. I am in no way looking for a man or anyone to solve these issues. First and foremost, I am quite capable of doing this alone. I am very strict with money and budget well within my means, and was as expected for a person of my age. I have a good job, that to be fair, could pay better. Work a second job and am working on getting qualified in an area to improve employment options. Life circumstances are different for everybody on how they got to this moment in their lives. Personal or otherwise. I have had my fair share of struggles that would have given me license to go a much darker route, but I chose not to. There is also cultural aspects of someone's issues and circumstances that need to be taken into consideration. The post was made as a snippet of a much larger picture. There are so many aspects to being the single on a group of couple, that are not just related to expenses, it goes beyond much more than that. There's also just the underlying issue of things continuing to rise in cost and people expectations versus others. Geez, I'd be happy to elope and have a barbecue in the back garden with a few family and friends, so maybe my opinion is skewed when it comes to justifying paying exorbitant amounts for these things. I'm sure there's plenty more of a point I would like to get across. I'm happy to leave it at that. Stories number 40. AITA for refusing to pay my best friend for showering and doing laundry at her place. Due to unforeseen circumstances, my friend and I have been best friends for about almost 4 years now. During our friendship there has been a lot of issues regarding money. She would buy us coffee or whatever and say, "Oh no, I got this," or she would ask to get breakfast or something and I would say I am broke and she would then offer to buy. Sometimes we would be out with her and her boyfriend and he would offer to pay, then my fiancé would say no, let me pay, then her BF says no, I will pay, but then the next day my friend would send a text saying how much we owed them. I never argue or make an issue about it because I avoid conflict. Keep in mind, every time we would buy something for them we would never ask for money in return or say that they owe us. About a month ago they did not have water where they stay and asked to come shower by us. We had to switch our geyser, water heater, on just so that they could have warm water, and we never asked them to pay for the electricity or water used. Point. We have been without electricity for a week and we don't know a lot of people around to help out. I reached out to my best friend and asked if we could do a load of laundry and have a shower. They said it is fine. The next time we asked if we could come around she said, and I quote, "You can pay us at the end of the month, for using their utilities. I am refusing to pay them for the one time we used their shower and electricity because I would never have expected them to pay us. And now we have not been able to wash our clothes or shower because what bill would we receive from my best friend at the end of the month?" AITA. Stories number 41. He hurt me for years. His chair got what was coming. About 10 years ago, I broke up with my abusive ex-boyfriend. After the breakup, it hit me, no pun intended, just how messed up the whole relationship really was. It took breaking up with him to stop being numb and actually feel rage. I had gone full no contact, so there was no way I was ever going to tell him how I felt. But we still worked at the same office. Yeah, that was fun. One evening, I was walking past his office after everyone had left, and there it was. His chair. I don't know why, I don't know how, but I needed to pee on it. I might have been a bit unhinged, I'm not going to lie. I peed on it. I did it 3 times that week. Every time I walked past his room and saw him sitting in that chair, it made me feel a little bit better inside. He made very long days, so he was sitting in my pee for about 12 hours a day. P.S. The fun only lasted about 2-5 weeks because the whole office moved and all the desk's chairs were thrown away, so no innocent coworker had to sit in it. Stories number 42. I married wrong, got depressed and let myself go. My life is basically over. I strongly believe that my life will be hell forever. I am forever tied to the wrong person because of my kids. Even if I try to get divorced, I need to stay in contact because of the kids, and if I choose to not stay in contact, I am either the horrible mom denying them their contact to their dad or the horrible mom who has left them behind. I made a huge mistake by marrying him. Didn't know myself back then, when I was 18 years old, because I've been in survival mode. I didn't know what it meant to be married, how to vet, or what it means to have children. I've simply been extremely stupid. I regret everything and hate my life. Because of that, I've become depressed for some years and got some help from some psychiatrist, but knowing that I am getting old, fat, tied to him forever and undesirable, I see no light in the future. I will never find true love, and I won't even receive the help from my family or friends, because the reason I married so early was to escape from my abusive home. I didn't know that it was abusive. I have been really completely clueless and dumb and helpless. Stories number 43. AITA for keeping my peace and avoiding my daughter. I have 5 kids. Those are Toby, 21M, Helen, 19F, Alex, 18M, Amber, 15F, and Jake, 10M. I'm gonna be honest and say my entire family and marriage is miserable. I was obligated to marry my husband after we accidentally got pregnant with Toby, and we're basically only together for the kids, and once Jake is old enough we'll probably divorce and stop speaking to each other. He keeps trying to improve things, but I know it's no use. I also have a rocky relationship with my kids because I choose to be distant. The only person who really brings me joy anymore is Jake. Amber has become a lot more needy in the last 2 years. She had an attempt in middle school which led to a hospital stay for a couple months. We had to pick up extra work shifts and get side jobs to pay for it, which could have bankrupted us. When she came back, she was a lot more sentimental and sensitive and wanted us to have family days and stuff because she wanted to be closer. My husband catered to this, and now we have obligatory family days on Saturday, which used to be my one day to relax. Amber also wants to spend a lot of one-on-one time with me, which I begrudgingly did for a while because her therapist strong-armed me into doing it, insisting it was important. Nowadays she still tries finding ways to bug me when I've asked her to leave me alone. My husband confronted me about this, saying that Amber's therapist said she's regressing and it's somehow my job to fix it. I argued with him and said I am trying to keep my peace and stay out of her life because being around her depresses me. I can't control how I feel. I am honestly checked out of my relationship to almost everyone except Jake. I fantasize about leaving everything behind and just taking him with me. However, my husband said that I could be affecting Jake too by how I act, and now I'm worried he might feel I don't love him or that I could stop enjoying being around him at any time. I love Jake and I don't want to hurt him, he's my baby. MITA. Stories number 44. AITA because I said no to my mom's BF living with me and my fiancé. My mom has a new boyfriend who made me and my fiancé uncomfortable. He kept looking at my fiancé up and down and also told her she doesn't have the right to talk when she's around him. Every time she'd talk he had to intervene and say something so she couldn't talk. My mom is homeless right now with her new boyfriend. I told my mom she could live with us, but he couldn't, and she yelled at me and told me I was ungrateful for the fact she gave birth to me. She said I wouldn't take care of her and her BF like she did when I needed her. And I just want to add I've been in foster care until now. Stories number 45. Coworker resigned after getting a pimple. We hired a new guy last month to work in our manufacturing line. Job description included working with machinery in a temperature and humidity-controlled space. The machinery needed to be cleaned with ethanol. That was the extent to which he would be involved with chemical solvents. After training the guy for a month, he sent me a text one morning citing health issues due to using chemicals. The health issue was that he got a pimple on his forehead. And he never grew any pimples at all. Therefore it had to be because he was exposed to chemicals during work and he couldn't work with us any longer. Stories number 46. I 29M told my girlfriend 29F that she's been forgetting things and she had a meltdown. Like the post says. We've been dating for 1.5 years, she's the love of my life, but this morning I mentioned that I've noticed she's been forgetting conversations we've had, double ordering things off Amazon, forgetting little things I'll ask her to pick up or get from even a room away, and in general feeling a little checked out at home. I brought this up to her attention very delicately and thoughtfully and she got extremely defensive, started crying, and it's looking like the rest of the day is shot. Is there a better way I can go about bringing this to her attention? I'm sort of a direct person and she's sensitive, so it's been a learning curve. I want her to be aware of these things so we can better ourselves. Stories number 47. Steal my commission. Fine, enjoy doing my work while I work as a consultant. So my first job was a retail job selling audio and TVs. I worked at a store that is basically Walmart. The numbers represent what I made in US. I also worked in a third world country too, so the numbers may be lower, etc. So we made commission only and worked the retail floor. While you had a basic pay, it fell away if you went over commission. So if your basic was $500 and you made commission of $550, you would made the larger number. We also got paid pension and medical insurance as per the law. As a salesperson I also had to set up displays, do stock count, restock shelves and do pricing. It sucked, but it was part of my job. I also had to make sure I sold stuff to make money. Side note, I was really good at making displays, restocking, and all the admin. In fact, my OCD and ADHD meant I was almost too good. This meant my sales sucked a lot, so I worked with this guy called Lorenzo because that's his name. Now this dude was a shark. He would steal sales, i.e. hijack customers, dispute sales, etc. Basically he would do anything but the admin tasks. So basically sell. The one day I sold a really expensive TV and audio combo that made me $300. Basically a big chunk of change. I'm super happy and go enjoy my weekend. I come back Monday and then I discover my sale got reversed, put into Lorenzo's name because it was his customer. So basically I lost that $300 and I couldn't dispute it. I was fucking livid. I decided I was done with this job and everything else. So I went to the manager's office and quit on the spot. Signed all the papers and walked out. All before 9 a.m. Monday morning. Now all this admin had not been done, so pricing, stock count, restocking, display making, adjusting, because Lorenzo just never did it. So I just left everything like it is, and as one can imagine, Monday was really messy after a weekend. I get a panicked phone call from my manager the following Tuesday morning saying that he wanted me back because all the admin wasn't done and corporate were on his ass. Long story short, I agreed that I would help if I come as a contractor where I get paid benefits and pension, a generous hourly rate. It worked out to 4 times my basic salary and a quarter of the hours. So basically I got paid $2,000 a month to be a subcontracted manager. He and I agree on the terms and go back to work Wednesday. This is where it was beautiful. I had to train Lorenzo to do everything and document where and how he made mistakes. I didn't have to get my hands dirty, all I did was direct and tell Lorenzo how and where to put things. I worked 10 a.m. until 2 p.m. and got weekends off. So seeing Lorenzo struggle was brilliant. Listening to him complain and moan was also heartwarming. While he worked I would just take out my laptop, sit at a desk overlooking the floor while I video gamed and did what I wanted, all while supervising Usalesso. He moved to another store after 6 weeks because he hated the fact I was on his arse. In the end I got rehired full-time, basically being a trainer and subcontracted manager. I was hired by corporate head office, not by my store. I worked for a year and then moved on. So don't mess with the guy who does all the heavy lifting. TLDR, look at me, I'm your personal manager now. Stories number 49. The contractors are insane. I was expecting a delivery today, so I was home waiting. I saw him drive and stop on a side street, so I walked out and waved. He sat there a good 15 minutes looking directly at me. I realized he wasn't going to attend while I was there, so I got into the car and drove around the corner and parked and waited until he drove to my house. I could see his car. As soon as I did, he drove to the front of the house and stopped. Then I darted back to the house quickly, into the driveway, and waved at him. He rolls his eyes and drives off, and then I get a notification that the parcel is awaiting collection at the post office because the attempted delivery was unsuccessful. It's insane that we have to put up with this crap. The government needs to look at renationalizing Australia Post. Stories number 50. AITA because I, 29F, don't want to be with my boyfriend kid's father, 35M, because he doesn't help financially. So I, 29F, am conflicted about staying with my boyfriend, 35M, who I've been with for 6 years. We have 2 boys together, ages 3 and 4. I basically take care of all our shared bills, rent, water, gas, electric, phone, daycare, and groceries. He struggles financially, but he does acts of service. He'll take out the trash, change my oil if needed, wash and keep my truck clean, and I know if I ever had a flat tire, he'd handle it. But is that enough? That's what I'm questioning. Am I the a-hole? I work from home for a major insurance company as a claims rep, making decent money. I also used to work full-time as a CNA, and I still pick up PRN shifts to keep things afloat. I've voiced my need for help plenty of times. He does work, but he's not the most reliable. Sometimes he won't stay a full shift, and his checks are always short, according to him. I don't know if I should keep giving him grace or say something more direct. I don't want to come off as bitchy. Sometimes he'll promise to pay a bill or contribute, and then he doesn't follow through. Just lies. It's frustrating. Stories number 51. AITA if I refuse to call the dentist for my fiancé who has an impacted wisdom tooth. First of all, I would like to say that this is ridiculous and not a big deal, but for some reason it became one. I, 25F, had an impacted wisdom tooth that was wrapped around a nerve. While I was pregnant. I asked him, 26M, if he could call the dentist BC it hurt to talk. He said no. Now it's 1 year later and he now has an impacted wisdom tooth and I sympathize with him, but he asked me to call the dentist for him and I said no. His mom is now asking me to call for him. I said no. He's upset about it. Does this make me an asshole? Edit, I ended up calling anyway because I felt bad. Edit 2, he apologized before I called. Stories number 52. AIO when I found out on Facebook my husband personally delivered flowers to another woman. I found out on FB my husband personally delivered flowers to another woman, former coworker, at her house. I got mad and said it was an inappropriate gift that's saved for important women in your life such as a wife, GF, mother, etc. And what was worse is he didn't tell me he was gonna do that. I had to find out from social media when I saw this woman thanking my husband for bringing her flowers to her house. He thinks it wasn't necessary to tell me because it meant nothing. Edit, okay, I did not expect this to blow up. Woman got let go. It was not from the office, it was from him only. She only thanked him. He does kind gestures for others and mentions them, but he hasn't personally delivered flowers to other women before. He always calls me after work and tells me what he's gonna do. Not to ask for permission, I'm not his mom, but just to update me. This is just something he does, I never had to ask him to update on where he's going. Others have asked if he gets me flowers. He hadn't gotten me flowers or birthday gifts until recently and we've been together for over 10 years. Gifts like that haven't really been his thing. My issue isn't kindness to another person, it's why this specific thing I wasn't told about when it's something he regularly does without me even having to ask. Stories number 53. AITA for telling my friend her kid is a demon. I, 27F, I am currently having complications with a friend that we will call Karen, 28F, for this situation. So some context on the situation is I have a lot of kids, and I mean a lot, 3 weeks from due date currently. I'm also typically our friend group's trusted babysitter when anybody has something come up with their daycare. So I'm pretty used to an array of different personalities when it comes to kids in my everyday life. Myself and this friend have 2 very different parenting styles. I'm more communicative and personally don't believe in corporal punishment as redirection explanations make more sense to me. She is more of the southern style of raise her voice, if you don't hear her the first time, you're gonna feel her hand on the second. That being said, I have finally came to the conclusion of I just can't watch her oldest kid anymore. I don't think I've ever met a more angry child before in my life, and I'm by no means blaming the child for his temperament, but it's just not something that I can personally handle anymore. He doesn't follow any sort of directions, even simple ones, without lashing out violently. He goes out of his way to physically hurt anything without any warning, and I mean anything. The cat, any child, big kid, adult, the freaking house plants. The scary part is he always laughs and then follows up with name-calling, swearing, or a lovely shrieking sound that would put any coyote to shame. I know this is really messed up to say, but it's like a rerun of the orphan movie IRL when dealing with this kid. Yesterday he walked up to me asking for a snack, and before I could even lift my head from washing dishes he slapped me as hard as he could. It took everything in me to keep from crying because that would obviously freak out my littlest babies in the house. I put him in my spare room, time out, away from the other kids so I could not only take a breath, but reduce the amount of damage that he was currently doing in that moment. Mind you, the situation is completely foreign to me because I can't even count how many kids I've watched over the years, and I've never found myself afraid of a kid. After the incident, I called Karen and told her she needed to immediately come get her son and make other arrangements for him, but I could handle her youngest still to help her save money. She went on to say he's really not that bad, and she doesn't think it's fair that I've never said I wouldn't watch anyone else's kids. After months of having patience, I finally snapped and said, well, none of our other friends have kids that act like a literal demon. I asked her if he really wasn't that bad, then he had slapped me in the face, and why was he currently tearing apart my spare bedroom? If he was so easy to handle, then why do I have to constantly be in fear that he's gonna hurt not just me but another child in my care? She said she couldn't leave work and I needed to learn how to better manage the kids in my care. I was honestly so shocked and frustrated that I got on Facebook and messaged the father of her kids to come get them, even though I know it wasn't his day. I tried to call her again to let her know he was coming to get them, but she wouldn't answer her phone for myself or him. At 8 p.m. that night, 4 hours after she was supposed to be off, she showed up at my house looking for her kids. I told her they were with their father and her son's behavior has been reported to Dad. Now she's saying I potentially ruined her court case for primary custody because Dad had to pick up the kids and realized she was MIA with no idea that he even had the kids for hours. I told her it wasn't my fault and she had 2 breaks she could have called either of us back on, but chose not to. So Reddit, AITA, update, AITA for telling my friend her kid is a demon. So do I have a wild ride for you guys? A ton has happened in the last week and some change, so I'm going to TLDR most of it. Dad got emergency custody the following morning after spending the night getting an emergency mental health evaluation at our local hospital. They kept the kid for 3 days and we took that time to help Dad get his house ready for primary parenting. The lawyer went my Karen's place on Monday for the unexpected home visit, and to put it bluntly, there was a lot more going on than any of us realized. The kids' belongings were placed in a pile beside the couch where the kids have apparently been sleeping for the last month. One of the 5 bedrooms in her house is completely unlivable, and the 3 rooms outside of her own are being subleased to strangers. Yes, you're reading that right, she took away her children's rooms and put strangers in there. They also documented smells of burning plastic and urine throughout the household, and there is no pets in the home. She was directed to submit a drug test, and as of now she still has not done that. I am absolutely mortified of the conditions those babies have been living in for months without any of us in the friend group realizing. It also makes sense because she stopped hosting get-togethers shortly after her separation, and we all just assumed she was taking time for herself. Now the icing on the cake, a lot of you warned me that she would likely try to lash out toward me, and you were right because she absolutely did. She tried to call social services claiming that I had an illegal daycare running in my home. Well, of course a social worker did show up, but thankfully the situation was clarified within the same day. I explained that 5 of the kids in my house were my own biological kids and the 2 others I was watching for my cousin without personal pay. Gave them receipts and my last couple bank statements as proof and should be getting a letter within the next week closing the case as unfounded. They have a hearing Friday to establish custody and the lawyer has already said it will go to Dad. Karen will get supervised visitation if she petitions for it. If anything changes or something else crazy happens, I'll definitely be updating again, but thank you guys. Stories number 54. WIBTA if I drafted my mother's divorce papers and served them to my dad. This is a throwaway account since my family knows my real one, and I apologize in advance for the long read. I'm a 28-year-old female, working as a divorce lawyer. Growing up, my home life was extremely toxic. As a child, I was sexually assaulted by a relative, but when I told my parents, they didn't believe me. My father, in particular, called me an attention-seeking bitch. The trauma from that experience, combined with a lack of support, led to my diagnosis of clinical depression and severe anxiety when I was just 12. I attempted to take my own life multiple times because of everything going on. My father has always been emotionally unavailable, yet he insists he loves me, but I can't bring myself to believe even a little bit of that. Honestly, I don't think so. He loves anyone but himself. It wasn't until I turned 18 or 19 that I realized most of the abusive and toxic behavior came from my father, while my mother was often made out to be the villain in our home. Around the same time, my mother was struggling with undiagnosed health issues. Doctors believed it was an autoimmune disease, possibly fibromyalgia or lupus, triggered by stress. My father would deliberately try to stress her out, causing flare-ups that often landed her in the hospital. I begged my mom to leave him, but she always said, "I love him, I cannot. You'll understand when you grow up." My mom is incredibly intelligent, despite being a bit of a pushover. She has a master's degree in biochemistry with a specialization in forensic sciences and later pursued law as well. My maternal grandparents are very wealthy, their property alone is worth around $3 billion today. Even though she had multiple proposals from wealthier families, she chose my father, who was in the military back then. My mom is also very successful in her own right. She has properties she purchased with her own money, including the homes we live in today. When my parents got married, my mother was just 21, and my father was supposedly 5 years older, but he lied about his age and confessed the truth just 2 days before their wedding. After their marriage, he convinced her to drop her career. It wasn't until they had been married for 7 years that she finally stood up for herself and pursued her law degree. I was 6 years old at the time. Throughout my childhood, my dad would come home and yell at me for no reason, and my mom had to shield me from being hit on several occasions. When I was 17, I came home 10 minutes past my curfew after a run. It was around 8 p.m. My father dragged me by my hair from the building's lift to our apartment. He slapped me, kicked me in the stomach, and almost punched me. That night, I attempted suicide for the last time. Thankfully, my friends found me the next day and rushed me to the hospital. When my parents arrived, my mom was in tears, but my father shouted, "I should have killed her myself last night, it would have saved me this expensive bill." My mother was devastated. She had already lost my baby brother due to medical negligence and was thrown into a flashback of that time. After giving birth to my brother, she had refused to sleep with my father, and he had furiously whipped his belt on the bed frame. With all this context, you can understand just how abusive my father is. I have been no contact with him ever since I left my parents' home. But recently, I got a call from the hospital. They informed me that my mother had been under immense stress and arrived just in time. If it had been even 5 minutes later, she might have suffered organ failure. I broke down, knowing deep down that my dad was behind her condition again. I'm begging my mother to leave him, but I know she loves him too much to take that step. I can't help but think he is intentionally trying to kill her so he could take over my grandparents' property. I don't know at this point, to be very honest. I'm considering serving my father with divorce papers behind her back because I just want him out of our lives. If anyone has advice for my mom, I'd appreciate it, and I'll make sure she reads it. Maybe it will help her find the strength to leave him for good. Long story short, after a few weeks in the hospital, my mother lost her battle with her autoimmune and passed away 4 months back. All I remember from that night is waking up to a nurse yelling that she's coding, them sending me out of her room, and the doctor coming out looking at me apologetically and shaking his head. Everything after that was a blur. I couldn't bring myself to leave her bed and just laid there hoping she'd appear from the doorway. My uncle and my grandparents were my biggest strength during this time. My uncle would drive me in his car in circles until I fell asleep. The first drama happened at my mom's funeral. Everything was going beautifully. Some of her peers from before her marriage came and said the kindest words about her. When it was my turn, I spoke this poem which I wrote an hour before the funeral. You were my warmth even in your last days, still trying to shield me, even in death. Your hands once held my world in place, now silence stands where I saw grace. You fought through pain with quiet brawn, a fading flame that burned so bright. You were my home, my heart, my start, and now I grieve with half a heart. A couple minutes later, everyone started looking towards the door, which caused all of us to look as well, and lo and behold, who was at the door with a girl who could be my younger sister dressed in an exposing skimpy red dress, my dad. I just froze. How this man even found the audacity. My uncle got up quickly and told him that he wasn't welcome here. At which he started crying crocodile tears. You won't let me grieve my dead wife, are you even human? My uncle pointed towards the girl and said, looks like you've been grieving enough. He asked them to leave after that or he'll call the police on them, after which he made a weird face and left huffing and puffing. I looked at my uncle as he took his seat back and whispered, it'll be okay. It took me months to feel better, but something in me still felt very much broken. She was supposed to leave my dad and walk me down the aisle. She was supposed to live to see her grandkids, and my dad took it all away from her. We had a restraining order in place so he couldn't come to the hospital near her room, but he still found ways to torment her. He would call her and yell at her and threaten to kill me if she didn't take off the restraining order, which honestly, how stupid he could be to not realize that it was a violation. The police were called on him and they arrested him and slapped a fine. But that led to him using his friends to threaten my mom and cause extreme flare-ups. By the end of it we had restraining orders against 6 different people besides my dad. Almost 3.5 months back, my grandparents thought it was a good time to have my mom's will executed since I was in a good place mentally as well. Now of course my dad had to be there, but none of us thought he'd have the audacity to bring the girl from the funeral who was awfully chirpy, and it was clear that he had been also possibly cheating on my mom. Our lawyers started reading her will, and oh my mother, I am so proud of you. She left to my dad his clothes and shoes and everything else to me. She had also left a note for my dad that the lawyer was supposed to read in front of everyone. It basically asked him to screw himself, and because she couldn't bring herself to leave him while she was still alive, she is glad she doesn't have to carry him on her back to her afterlife. I chuckled for the first time since her passing, but I don't think so. My dad and his mistress liked it very much, but then he turned to me as if he wanted to say something but just kept his mouth shut. But knowing him, I knew he wanted to stay in mom's house with his mistress, but boy oh boy I wasn't going to let that happen. My grandparents called a family meeting to discuss the update's inheritance. My dad was obviously eager to join but my uncle told him he wasn't welcome with whoever he has been bringing until now. To my surprise, really not, he showed up alone. My grandmother started with stating the clause about transferring the inheritance to the living spouse in case their kid passes away. I could see my dad foaming at his mouth for the inheritance. It was disgusting, but then the train hit him as my grandfather announced that they had amended that clause to be transferred to the kids and he lost it. He started yelling about how it is unfair and that he has no other source of income as of now. My grandmother just said, "Not our problem," and started to snack on whatever was at the table. However, it was going to be more unfair to him as I slapped an eviction notice on the table stating that since the house is in my name, I am not going to let him taint it any more than he already has and he has one day to pack his clothes and shoes and get out. He was fuming but he saw my uncle step forward and just left. In hindsight, I really wish I could have done more but as it turns out, from what I have heard, the girl left him and he is now spending his days at an homeless shelter. He tried to come to the firm where I work but the security didn't let him pass and it looks like he has destroyed his life all on his own. I don't ever intend to make any contact with him. I shifted to the house my mom left me, and I have been doing some furniture changes to rid it off all the things my dad might have ever touched. It was traumatic at first but it reminds me of my mother and that is all that matters to me now. That is all for the update. Thank you to each and every one of you who left advice on my last post and sent me messages to keep checking up on me these past few months. I can't be more grateful. Stories number 55. I just don't get it. I honestly don't get why most girls my height or even shorter have to date a 6 feet plus guy. It's preference and there's nothing wrong with having preferences but some PPL will literally pass on a 10-10, sweet, loyal guy just cause he's under 6 foot like I actually have friends like this. I have a friend who's 5'2" and she's like, he has to be at least 6 feet 5 inches and I'm like, bitch what? That's a long distance relationship. I'm 5 feet 1 inch and my boyfriend is 5 feet 7 inches to 5 feet 9 inches which is honestly a really nice height distance for me, and if he was shorter I wouldn't care cause he's so sweet like that 6 to 8 inches of height difference. That's a lot. I can still wear 5-inch high heels and he'll still be taller YK. And also, you can't control your height YK. So why clown on someone for it? I just don't get it. Edit. All I'm saying is be reasonable cause this goes for both men and women. I have a tall friend, she's like 5 feet 10 inches or 5 feet 11 inches and she wants to be shorter so bad cause guys don't like tall girls and I want to be taller cause I feel like PPL don't take shorter PPL seriously but yeah, anyways, if I have other thoughts it'll come back. Edit 2 I am a woman y'all. Edit 3. Oh god IG I just live somewhere where this is really common cause a lot of folks are saying that they've never met a woman that will refuse to date below 6 feet 2 inches but literally everyone, except for about 2 friends, are like that. Stories number 56. I saw a grandpa try to get his grandson a job, the boomer way. I saw a boomer interaction the other day that, while not entirely foolish, was just another reminder of how easy it is for them to get out of touch. I was walking into a local grocery store to pick up a few items when I saw an older man ahead of me approach one of the employees. Next to him was a younger kid, probably high school age. Guessing grandpa and grandson. The older guy walked up to one of the employees who was wrangling carts, and starts with, "Excuse me. I've got a young man here who is interested in his first job." The kid corralling carts just kind of looked at him for a moment and said something like, "Oh, well you gotta go online to apply." The old guy started talking again as I was walking past them into the store, but I caught the face of the grandson and could see he was a bit embarrassed. I grabbed my stuff, went to the self-checkout, and headed out to my car not really expecting to see them again, but there they were at their car a few spaces down from mine. I could tell the grandson was trying to explain to the grandpa how applying for a job worked now, and the grandpa was just kind of shaking his head and not responding. I didn't see grandpa get upset or angry, or try to do anything other than help his grandson by using what he knew. I.e. the old, walk in, shake the manager's hand, and ask for a job, type wisdom. I have no doubt he truly wanted to help, he just had no idea how. The world he grew up in is long gone. His wisdom is almost useless today. The old man was left foolish because he was at best complacent, and at worst obtuse to reality. The world has moved on. It's left his kind behind. But only because he spent the last several decades blind to what's been happening around him. Stories number 57. AITA for ripping into a guy when he thought I was playing hard to get. I'm 16F, the guy is 17. I'll call him J. We don't go to the same school but we have a mutual friend which is how we met. I'm not interested in dating, I've never really been, but it's obviously normal for people my age. So when Jay was initially showing interest I wasn't rude or anything, I politely said, "No, I'm sorry," when he asked me out on a date the first time. He seemed to take it fine, which was expected as we didn't really know each other beyond small interactions, and I thought that was it. The problem I have with Jay is he just keeps going. He flirts and is overly insistent on staying by my side every time he sees me, and about every other time or so he'll ask me out again. It creeped me out. I try to avoid him or tell him to stop, and he joked that I was playing hard to get once. I told him that was only a thing in movies and I'm absolutely not doing that. Yesterday he did it again. I hadn't seen him in a little while because my friends know I'm not comfortable with him and let me know if he'll be joining us to hang out, though most of them also don't like him and avoid him. I only saw him yesterday because he came across me and a few other girlfriends and just stuck around. It was the same as always. He was complimenting me, being kind of awkwardly flirtatious, and just wasn't getting it when I ignored him or shut him down. I made up an excuse to go home and my friends went along with it because they knew I wanted to get away from him. He started following us back to my fucking house. He joked that I was going to stop playing hard to get one of these days, and I just snapped. I told him that he was delusional, that no girl wanted a creepy weirdo like him, and that he needed to get a fucking grip and just leave me alone. He was visibly pissed but just said, fine, and stomped off. Did I go too far? My friends are telling me that I was justified and that they'll stand up for me too the next time he tries to tag along uninvited. But I want to know if I was too cruel to him. I know we're still young and he has a lot of time to change as a person, but I'm scared this'll make it really awkward with that mutual friend. He's a really nice guy, and about what'll happen if we walk by him again since we live in a small town. Stories number 58. AITA for kicking my son and his GF out. This situation has had me a bit confused, so one of my neighbors suggested I post it here. I 55F have two children, George 31M and Gabrielle 29F. Gabrielle recently got engaged and I am helping her plan the wedding in my spare time, which the entire family is very excited for. Except for George. George recently divorced his wife of 7 years, Susanna 28F, after he said that spark had gone out. They have a set of twins together, Amy and Alice 6F. And are trying to set up a healthy co-parenting relationship. Susanna is a great mother to my grandkids and I was disappointed in George for giving up so fast on their relationship without even trying couples counseling. But it wasn't my business or place to say anything. The drama started when George brought his new girlfriend to dinner at my house. He met his girlfriend Bethany 25F through a work colleague and they have been dating for 4 months. At dinner Gabrielle and I were discussing flower arrangements and Bethany felt the need to ask George if he'd ever marry again. George coughed before replying that he'd have to think about it, which Bethany seemed to deflate at. Well, this caused Alice to cry about how she wants mommy and daddy to love each other again. George and Bethany just sat there while my granddaughter screamed. After I comforted Alice, I pulled George aside and asked if he was sure about Bethany, which he told me was none of my business. I told him it was my business who he invited into my home and my grandchildren's lives, since I've been caring for them in my spare time while he works. He and Susanna have 50-50 custody. George got angry and said it was Gabrielle's fault for mentioning weddings in the first place. I told him to stop acting like a child and to be happy for his sister. Then Bethany felt the need to insert herself and tell me that she and George were together no matter how much I liked his ex-wife. After that I was done with the conversation and asked them both to leave. George and Bethany stormed off, flipped me the bird and left my grandchildren at my house at 7 p.m. I had to call Susanna to collect the children since they had school in the morning and I was attending a cake tasting with Gabrielle the next day. I feel like I shouldn't have to tell my 31-year-old son to be happy for his sister or argue with a random woman whom I have never met before, in my own home. So AITA, update. I didn't expect this post to gain so much attention and I want to thank everyone who gave their honest opinions and helpful suggestions. This situation happened a few hours ago and I thought it right to make an update. Bethany came to my house to apologize for how she acted at dinner last week. She told me that she was 2 months pregnant and George had broken up with her after she told him, because he has too much responsibility and didn't want to be in the baby's life. I then spent the better part of 3 hours talking with Bethany about the baby and what she wants. She says she wants to keep the baby even if George refuses to be in its life, and I told her that I would help with childcare if she needs it since she doesn't have any family that live nearby. Before I got angry with George, the first thought I would call him and give him a chance to explain. George was angry that Bethany had shown up at my house and insisted that it wasn't his baby. I told him that he should get a paternity test and he asked me for $500 to cover it since he's struggling. I told George that he needs to figure it out himself since he's about to be a father of 3, and that he better step up and do right by his kids. George then hung up. Well, 2 hours later I get a call from Susanna to say that George hadn't picked up the kids like he'd previously agreed to and could she drop them at my place because she had work. I agreed for her to drop Amy and Alice off and tried to call George again. I called 12 times and they all went to voice message. I don't know where George is and have called his place of employment to try to find out, however they refuse to tell me anything. I've agreed to watch Amy and Alice until Wednesday and Susanna has reported this incident to CPS. I assume she plans to file for full custody and I can't blame her. Right now I'm worried that George has run off somewhere or done something irresponsible. I am disgusted and will not be doing him any favors in future unless he has a very good explanation and accepts some responsibility. This was hard to write but felt good to get off my chest. Thank you everyone for responding to my first post. Update, AITA for kicking my son and his GF out. Well, first of all, Gabrielle is now married to her amazing fiancé and I couldn't be more proud. The wedding was a small family affair at his parents' farm. George did not attend the wedding but it was a beautiful ceremony all the same. Bethany has given birth to a healthy baby boy and has found an apartment and a new job. I am so proud of her for how well she is coping with everything. As suggested in my last post, we did get the twins therapy and it has helped them heal throughout this whole process. After George took off and abandoned his children, our whole family needed time to heal and recover from the hurt and trauma. As for George, that's a messy situation. Roughly 4 months ago George was found to be in possession of illegal substances and was arrested. When George first called me from the county jail I thought he was trying to get money out of my husband and I, however it just got worse and worse. He asked me to pay for a lawyer and I explained that because of his actions I couldn't afford to help him and that I couldn't trust him. George just sobbed and started apologizing for all he had done. I told him it was his kids he should be apologizing to. He kept sobbing and then told me there was another woman pregnant with his child. At first I didn't believe him but then he gave details and I looked her up on Facebook. There was a picture of them as the profile picture. I hung up on him, disgusted yet still feeling somewhat responsible for what he has become. It was a few days later that we heard from George again and he told us his trial was in 2 months. He sounded so scared but part of me thought this was what he needed to learn consequences, though I felt disgusted at my thoughts since he's still my son who I raised. My husband and I decided to attend the trial, even though it was in the next state. We felt we had to for our son and peace of mind. I told Susanna and Bethany and they were bewildered, declining to attend. At the trial, George was found guilty of all counts including criminal damage, robbery, and failure to pay child support. The judge gave him 6 years with no plea deal due to evidence. I didn't know how to feel. My grandkids won't see their dad for 6 years. It's been 4 months and I'm still confused. George calls daily, crying, apologizing, begging us to get him out and to speak to his kids, which I've declined since Susanna hasn't given permission. Bethany decided no contact with him or her son. I haven't reached out to his other girlfriend either, so unsure how to feel. This was depressing but I'm glad I updated. Thank you for reading. This is probably my last post. I hope we can recover. Stories number 59. AIO that I'm appalled mother changed her whole belief system because Dems were mean to her. My mom is a suburban white female. She's intelligent, but has various mental illnesses and when she talks she kind of just throws feces at the wall and each factor doesn't really connect to the other. Growing up, she was a Democrat cool. She has racial issues against various groups. Yes, I've tried talking to her about all of this. It's literally the equivalent of talking to a wall that also happens to be a baby. She met a Republican kid at her church, who was nice to her, I guess. Anyways, my mom was talking about the Trayvon Martin case and how he shouldn't have been misbehaving during Thanksgiving when we were hosting family. My extended family tore into her, and called her racist, because she was literally being racist, and all my mom took from it was, they yelled at me in my own home, sad face. She literally became a Republican because the Democrats were mean to her. I'm sorry lol, I just think this is the stupidest fucking thing I've ever seen. She also says really weird things to me, like I submit to my boyfriend and do whatever he wants, and that all I do is submit to men. I'm in a high-powered job with an egalitarian relationship lol. Meanwhile, she changed her whole belief system because a male at church was nice to her. Stories number 60. Boyfriend sent this breakup text out of nowhere. Am I overreacting? We've been together for 1.5 years and lived together in his house. He sent me this text recently and I'd like some outside perspective. Do you think he's actually ending things or just emotionally checked out right now? Would giving him space help or is it likely done? Appreciate any insight. Hey, so I think that long term, this probably isn't going to work. Things have been bipolar and truthfully just rough since like 8 October. Pretty exhausted over it and we're not really happy together. I don't have a ton of confidence that it's just gonna turn around. We aren't on the same page and rarely communicate appropriately with one another, which at this point is just who we are. Neither of us is just going to flip some switch and suddenly this gets better. I'm on a plane to work now and then I work the rest of the day and it's a 4-day trip. I have to do work and I will be focused on that. You have my schedule and should be able to see my layovers. I can likely talk at some point during those layovers.